They're going to be gusty overnight, certainly manageable, nothing like what we had earlier, 30, 40. You may get a gust of 50 or so. Again, if you have a kind of an open view of the water where the wind is coming off the water. And in Polk County, it's going to be several more hours of heavy rain. We'll kind of jump on in again to Manatee and Sarasota County. Finally, an end to the rain. This was the worst weather in our viewing area. I'll tell you what, Northport, Englewood, when Paul and I came on the air at like 1:30, 2 o'clock this afternoon, the northwest and northern side of the eye wall was very well intact and just pivoting into these spots. Punta Gorda had a wind gust 124, and a lot of that wind made it into southern Sarasota County as well. So not only the wind damage that we're going to see when daylight comes up tomorrow, but the flooding issues. You think back to Hurricane Elsa. You guys in Northport just got hammered with like 12 inches of rain. You've had like 15 inches of rain this time around, and finally starting to get an end to that. But the flooding and the wind damage just widespread, unfortunately. So Sarasota South, I would say the hardest hit spots in our viewing area right now. We'll kind of jump on over a little bit further east right now. Heavy rain still in parts of Hardy County. This area was under a flash flood warning for much of the evening. That has ended, but flash flood warnings continue up into southern Polk County until about 1 a.m. As I showed you earlier, very heavy rain in Polk County, quieting down in Hillsborough. You have some moderate rain over in eastern Hillsborough County with some of those bands still kind of drifting back to the west. But we've ended the rain in a lot of Pinellas, and it's just some sprinkles around downtown Tampa right now. It's still windy. Again, it's not fun, but we're kind of through the worst of it. And really much of our northern counties, Pasco, Hernando, Citrus, it's just kind of a gusty day with a lot of rain off and on. But you guys were spared for the most part. I mean, the highest wind gust I saw anywhere in Pasco, Hernando, and Citrus, I think was like 44 miles an hour just south of Brooksville. Everybody else, 20, 30. A lot of folks evacuated, sent their families up to Wesley Chapel. That was a great spot to be, it turns out, in this storm. If you were kind of running away from some of the mandatory evacuations in Pinellas and Hillsborough that we had earlier this week, that was a perfect spot to be in Wesley Chapel. Again, just a breezy day today with that off and on rain. Some of this rain over east of 75, over towards Bushnell and Claremont villages is going to still drift back to the west. There's a lot of dry air offshore, though, that's kind of winding around the whole system, and that's eating away at some of this heavier rain as it kind of drifts in. Still some gusty squalls coming in overnight through the Nature Coast, but everything is moving in a north-northeast direction, lifting up towards Kissimmee and Orlando. And as we wake up tomorrow morning, by the time daybreak comes around, this is pretty much going to be rain-free in a lot of our viewing area. Some breezy winds tomorrow. It'll be improving as the day wears on. But we're kind of through the worst of it right now, I think, in a lot of our viewing area, guys. We're just kind of sticking with Polk County, I think, at this point, and just kind of getting through it. I know it's not fun there. The wind is howling. It's pelting your windows. There's stuff blowing around still. Very gusty winds. It's not a fun time, but we're almost through it. We're going to get through it. No problem.
Almost from Davenport, southeast, at least in our viewing area. Yeah. That's the last of the group to take the worst of these winds. The max gusts you saw up there were right now. The storm said 90, but we're not even talking 90.
Yeah, I mean, all the observation points that I've seen in Polk County at worst are like 60, 65. Okay. Some are 35, 40. So it's manageable.
Manageable.
Yeah.
Okay. Manageable. We just want it to be over.
It's noisy and not fun. It's not devastation.
Do they keep records for the slowest hurricanes on record?
This one should qualify.
Yeah. The biggest problem when that happens is the rainfall.
It could be the biggest rainmaker. You never know. I mean,
undoubtedly.
Undoubtedly. Yeah. All right, Tyler, thanks. See you in a bit. All that wind and rain made quite a mess in Hillsborough County, brought down a lot of trees, leaving potentially dangerous debris in the roads. And the trees have really kind of been a big part of what we've seen in Manatee to Pinellas, especially in Hillsborough. And Fox 13's Haley Hines tonight is live in Brandon with a look at some of the damage reports from around the county. Hi there, Haley. I hear you've been on the move here. What have you seen?
Yeah, hey there, Mark. Yeah, this is one of the most common scenes that we've come across tonight. Fallen trees in the road, big, heavy branches blocking lanes of traffic. We're here on Hughes Street, north of 60 in Brandon. You can see how this big branch just snapped right off from the top of the tree, about 15 or so feet up there. So, really, when you get out there on the roads, when it is safe to do so, if you get behind the wheel in the coming days, you really want to proceed with caution, because there will be debris like this all over the roads, branches, trees, down power lines, things that have blown out of people's yards. So please be extra careful. We're going to start with this video from the Valrico area where we saw a large branch that dropped down onto the roof of a car on Sandridge Drive. Another toppled across Seffner-Valrico Road, and we spotted a wall that fell on its side on Brentwood Hills Boulevard. Over on Lithia Pinecrest Road, south of Oak Lane Road, big old tree fell on power lines, stretching them down, partially blocking the road there. You know, though we felt some very strong wind gusts today, it doesn't always take high winds to bring down these trees. The ground just gets so saturated from all the rain that the water weakens the base, and down they come. Tonight we met a family on Magnolia Drive in Thanota-Sassa. They were sitting outside on their porch earlier in the day when the storm brought down a tree onto their carport. The weight of that tree totaling 2 cars. They lost 2 carports, a shed. It caused thousands of dollars in damage. They, like so many others, have endured a nerve-wracking, exhausting day dealing with the storm and power outages, and they know it's going to be a long night.
I was just sitting down to settle for a nap because I knew we were going to be up all night. And down it came. I'm exhausted.
We can't get to any of it, so we're not sure what the extent of the damage is, but we will tomorrow. We got friends that are going to come over. We're going to pull the metal away and see what happens.
And it wasn't just down trees in the Apollo Beach area near US 41. We saw this awning that got ripped off a retail building along with a bent gutter. A short distance from there, we spotted this railroad crossing gate fallen, bent and twisted by the wind. And, you know, this is just the tip of the iceberg. Once the sun comes up, we'll really get to have a full assessment of the damage in Hillsborough County and around the Bay Area. So just a busy night around here, a lot to deal with. And you know, it's a pain to have to go in your yard and saw branches and trees, clean it up, deal with insurance companies, pay for property that you've lost. You know, it's a headache, but boy, when you look at some of those images from down south of us, knowing that we were in the crosshairs for a couple of days, and then that could have been us, looking at the video that we just showed you, it certainly lends a great deal of perspective to what we're dealing with here.
It's funny you mentioned that, Haley, because I was thinking about you. I was going to ask you that. I know you spent a good part of your career down there in Fort Myers, Naples area. What do you think it is you're seeing some of that's going on when they're talking about a minimum 7-foot surge, potentially in the 15, 18-foot range? I mean, a tremendous amount of damage. What kind of challenges you think they're looking at here in the next couple of months, if not longer?
Oh, I mean, Mark, it's heartbreaking. People love that area because it's on the water. We love those barrier islands. It's paradise. The city itself is on the Caloosahatchee River. The city was built out into the river in recent years so that people could enjoy it even more when they're downtown. And well, as we know, we've got the bay. The water is part of the reason we love it, but it's also in times like this when we do deal with storm surge, we know the risks, and unfortunately, you know, while we're focusing on this area tonight, the Tampa Bay area, certainly it's been really difficult for me to see those images. I know there are people in the station who have worked there before too. We know people, journalists down there, who are trying to do the same job that we're doing up here, and trying to stay focused while knowing that they've lost their homes or that their station is underwater and they have to be evacuated. You know, there are people who have vacations planned there in coming months and will be eager to get back there, but boy, you know, from the looks of it, there is a major cleanup that's really gonna lock up that beach area, especially. You know, where the beach is just gone. It's all water up there onto Estero Boulevard. So, yeah, it looks like it's going to take a while and certainly knock out their tourism economy there. So it'll be a while, and certainly our hearts are with them, and we'll support them the best we can.
No doubt about that. So
it's really tough to see our friends and family down there and what they're dealing with.
Yeah, some good perspective for sure. Haley Hines reporting for us tonight. Haley, thanks very much. No doubt about that. And, you know, because Hurricane Ian made landfall just south of us, it caused the bay, if you saw this today, some call it a reverse surge. Much of the water was pushed out. Not all of it, but a lot of it, exposing a lot of the more shallow areas. There were dozens of people along Bayshore watching as the water just left. Some walked hundreds of feet out to see where it was starting again, sometimes maybe as long as 2 football fields away. Again, that was because the winds of the storm. just literally pushing it out, even against the high tide, which really shows you how strong those winds were. Got dangerous for one woman who got stuck in the mud, and she needed a little help getting out. That's why we do not recommend doing this at home. But we understand the curiosity. The police ultimately stepped in because it's obviously a safety issue, given the unpredictability of the wind and the water, and you forget that this is not hard bottom in the bay. A lot of it is just mud and soft sand, so it's not the best to walk around on. They didn't want cars parked on the grassy median as well, but again, that's a site that hopefully we don't see again for a while.
Well, you know, a lot of us are feeling grateful and fortunate tonight after returning home from evacuating, fearing the worst, but then realizing that really, truly, we dodged the brunt of Hurricane Ian. Fox 13's Aaron Mesmer is live from South Tampa tonight, and he has the very latest with what you've seen, Aaron, and I think that's been sort of the resounding feeling all across our area is just we feel grateful that it didn't come right at us.
Right. I mean, you see what unfortunately, Allie, has been happening in the southern part of our state. And you have to think that folks are watching this wherever they evacuated to, thinking how fortunate they may feel once they come back to the South Tampa area. I mean, this is one of those areas that was evacuated where I think this is evacuation zone B. So this part of South Tampa is under mandatory evacuation. So there are a lot of people who are not here to see something like this happen. This is one of these huge trees. I know Haley just showed you one. Here's another one. This is a huge tree that came down. It's in the parking lot of the Palmacia Presbyterian Church, which is right at the corner of Beta Bay Boulevard and Dale Mabry Highway. Took down several power lines, knocked out the electricity to this block. However, the rest of this area, though, you know, outside of a few down trees, some down limbs, it looks like most of this area still has power. Now, I'm going to show you some other video we shot earlier this afternoon, and it's going to look a lot like what you just saw over on Bayshore Boulevard. What you're looking at here is Ben T. Davis Beach. The storm, just like it did on Bayshore, sucked all that water out of Old Tampa Bay and left the bottom of Old Tampa Bay exposed. You see, like Mark said, the sand, the mud. Really, we even saw some children's toys that that were probably sucked out to sea at some point into the bay at some point when they were playing on the beach. And we saw a lot of people, just like they were on Bayshore, walking out, taking pictures, taking a look at the sights and sounds, and until they were doing that, until police came by and started telling them to get off of there, because at some point the water is going to come back, and Tampa Mayor Jane Castor is urging people to still be cautious, because at some point, we still don't know if there's going to be some floods over the next couple of days as we deal with all this water. So listen to what she said a little bit earlier today.
Well, we've seen what that means when the hurricane hit down south. You saw that water come in, just rush in, that tidal surge. We don't expect to see that here, more of the gradual influx of the water, but it's still going to cause flooding in our area.
But for the most part, what people are going to be dealing with are these down trees and power lines, as we've been showing you throughout the evening here. We saw another down tree over on Cypress, blocking part of the road over there. I know Haley showed you some more in other parts of Hillsborough County. And Tampa Mayor Jane Castor, who you just heard from, she is saying as people come back into town, they really need to be careful of those down power lines, especially if they're coming back at nighttime, because sometimes you can't see them. They could be down on the road, and you just don't know they're there, and you don't want to accidentally drive over an active power line. And one more thing, Allie, that Mayor Castor says is she spoke yesterday with President Biden, and what he told her was that he's pledging the support of the federal government for not just Tampa, but all of the communities around our region that are dealing with the cleanup after the storm, because that, of course, is going to be the next step.
Yeah, I mean, we certainly did get a lot of damage. I mean, just seeing some of those trees, it's going to take a while to clean all of this up. TPD tweeted out a picture of a huge traffic light that just smashed right into the middle of the street. Just another reminder of why folks shouldn't be out tonight until this thing is long gone.
Absolutely.
Aaron, wondering about the homeless people that we usually see in downtown Tampa. Where did they go during the storm?
Well, during that news conference that Mayor Castor had today, one of the assistant police chiefs was talking about exactly that situation. He said that officers actually drove around and picked up a lot of the homeless people who were out throughout the town and brought them to shelters to make sure that they had a place to stay, had a place to ride out the storm and be safe. At that point, we didn't know how bad it was going to be, so they wanted to make sure they were safe as well.
That's nice to hear. All right, Aaron Mesmer live for us in Tampa. Thanks, Aaron.
And a report and reminder as well, even if the weather doesn't appear to be too bad where you are, the winds are calming down, we're still hearing from everybody, stay inside. Despite the lower winds, we're expecting still a lot of flooding due to the heavy rain.
If there are flash flood warnings in your area, remember, it is never safe to walk or drive through flooded areas. We continue to coordinate with all of our electrical partners. As the governor has mentioned, there are over 30,000 linemen staged throughout the city, from north central Florida all the way down to Miami.
Yeah, so right now 15 Florida hospitals have evacuated and initiated what they call a patient movement mission. Hospitals do have protocols in place to handle emergencies just like this one. And really on two fronts. Not only are they preparing for patients who might be hurt during the storm, but they've got to protect their actual facilities as well. And Tampa General, for one, if you know, is of course located right on the water. Earlier this week, crews put up this aqua fence around the hospital campus. Pretty neat new technology that can hold back water that has a surge up to 15 feet above sea level. TGH also has backup generators in case of power outages, and they do have an adequate water supply as well. So ahead of the storm, Tampa General chose to cancel their elective surgeries. There will be no elective surgeries for the next 2 days, we're told. The visitor policy has also changed. That's being assessed on a case-by-case basis. If you do have somebody there, check at the front desk for sure. And as for TGA Urgent Cares, all those centers, they're all closed tonight. Officials will reassess their opening plans tomorrow, of course, depending on the winds and the rain and the trees and the power lines. It's possible that Urgent Cares may not reopen, though, until Friday, so tomorrow may be off for them.
And meanwhile, Baycare hospitals closed all facilities to visitors at 5 o'clock this evening. The NICU pediatric patients, they were allowed to have one visitor throughout the storm. Morton Plant, North Bay and Newport Richey, and Bardmore's emergency department in Largo closed as well. Further south, Sarasota Memorial Hospital closed its urgent care centers yesterday. Entrances to the main hospital have been secured. The ER was still open. And if you experience an emergency, the state is still urging that everyone call 911, but understand that those emergency services may not be able to respond to you right away. Many streets are now rivers in Sanibel Island. Remember, that water is very dangerous. The water there that you're looking at is loaded with debris and waste. Everything on the ground gets picked up by the surge. Snakes, that's a great point, Paul. Gators. What else? I mean, keep going, guys. It's terrifying.
Well, fish.
Okay. No, really, though, we've been saying this all night. The true destruction probably won't be seen until day breaks. Well, we've got just about 7 hours to go.
Potentially sewage, too, which, of course, could be just as bad. So
all the things.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at some more video from Fort Myers Beach. Look at this. Cars and homes just completely underwater. It's awful. We've been seeing a lot of that in Fort Myers. And
we've only seen the video from from the downtown areas where they're 3 or 4 stories up where people have been safe. But there are areas probably just north of that, Paul, as you know, all the way up to Englewood, Venice. We haven't seen any video from the actual coastline yet. That's a scary part.
It's going to be all about the light of the day tomorrow. To look at damage all the way up and down the entire West Coast, it's going to be really incredible, and it's going to be one of those times where you drive up and down 75, you're going to see a lot of the blue tarps again. I think in many homes. And this is so far, at least in our major metro area, from Pinellas. Well, let's go ahead and talk about
what is this? This is in Naples.
This is in Naples, yeah.
Wow, look at that storm surge. Unbelievable.
Record high, 7 feet storm surge in Naples.
In Naples.
And there were 2 spots we have official numbers from, but it's also going to be probably about 10 officially. TV station down there, Wink TV. A lot of you folks have watched that TV station. Really struggled today with water in the first floor, off the air for a long time, parking lot flooded. They're right on the bay there in Fort Myers.
Yeah, I think at one point they were getting inundated with calls from people who I'm sure were scared. And firefighters were telling people to get to the highest point in their homes. They weren't able to get out because they can't get to you when the the that high.
And when you say 7, but probably more, you got the wind-driven rain that's on top of it.
Waves on top of that. And tell you this, and the thing is on our West Coast, and I think I talked this like an hour ago, and you know this as being a boating guy, is that how shallow the waters are. And they're pretty shallow and they extend way out. When you get a storm surge, the water really piles up. The East Coast can get a storm surge, but nothing like we get on our West Coast. And the East Coast, you go out, water gets deep. Here, it just slopes way out, and then the water just builds and builds and builds, and before you know it, it's splashing on shore, and you can get 6, 7, 8 feet.
And what I think is going to be slightly different, we know every storm, of course, is different. What's really going to be different about this we see tomorrow is we've plenty of had storm surges in Tampa Bay before. We've had them out on the beaches before. I'm not sure we've ever had a storm. Well, we've never had a storm surge quite like this, except maybe in the 20s with 150-mile-an-hour winds behind it. So you get the water and the force of that water that can cause a tremendous amount of damage.
This is the 1921 hurricane that made landfall just north of us. This is kind of like the 21 hurricane, except south of us. And then we had a big hurricane, by the way, in 1848. That's one that you probably don't remember. That one was really bad.
And the 1921 reshaped our barrier islands. There were several spots that reshaped those islands.
It reshaped the entire coastline. So we're going to slowly improve tonight. It's still ongoing inland, and it's no picnic at all. The problem with this all along was going to be the slow motion. The weakening continues, and top winds now probably, if we really searched, we could probably find a 75, 80-mile-an-hour wind gust in our viewing area, mainly inland in Polk County. But generally speaking, for all of you that are watching right now in Polk County, and the rain continues to pound on your roof, and the winds continue to howl, it's a steady, probably 55 to 60-mile-an-hour winds with gusts in places over hurricane force. And it really is, I mean, the best word, I guess, to describe this of all the adjectives is probably unnerving. It's just not fun at night to hear the rain and wondering, when is this ever going to stop? You're getting the weather that was over Manatee and Sarasota counties, and it wouldn't stop for them. It finally did. This is going to be probably continuing through most of the night. Now, by daybreak tomorrow, with the storm kind of up off our coastline, the weather is going to improve for everybody. I think we see the sunset tomorrow night in most places. And I would say, generally, I-75 west, as far as rain goes, the event is just about over. The winds are going to turn eventually on our coast to kind of northwest, say northwest and northwest. Will there be any sort of coastal flooding when that happens? Maybe like a foot or two above average, but we've learned over the years when storms are moving away from us and weakening, and the winds kind of turn on the backside, it's not really a big storm surge setup for us. I mean, I'm not saying we can't get some high water, but if we escape this entire event with water levels running a few feet above normal on our west coast, I think that's a big win for us. I don't think it'll be a big deal at all, but we'll watch water levels later on tonight. This is the heavy rain. Tyler, you can manipulate the radar, and we'll zoom in. And all of our towns here, from Dundee to Haines City, all the way back to Sun City Center. Let's not forget, Sun City Center had a tough go of it for a time today. Now it's pretty much I-75 and to the west, where it really is tapered off quite a bit. But let's not forget Plant City. Let's not forget Mulberry, Bartow, Lake Wales, Frostproof, Fort Meade, Polk City. All of you now have torrential rain. These are rainfall rates at about 5 to 7 inches per hour. And these rainfall totals here in Polk County, when we're done with this tomorrow, the entire event is going to be about 15 inches of rain. I'm pretty sure about that, if not higher. And that almost matches up with some of those numbers we were talking about yesterday. So all of these towns, all I can say as far as words of encouragement, on a dark, tough night. A lot of you right now are listening to me on radio, not on TV. So if you're listening to me on the radio right now, because a lot of you have been listening to us on all the Cox stations, is that as bad as it sounds outside your window now and on your roof, this is going to gradually improve tonight. This is not a situation, though, we can snap the finger and this is going to be done. This is going to be a slow process. But an important point is the storm is weakening all the time. And as far as getting wind damage, 90-mile-an-hour winds now, probably in the next advisory, probably down to 85, and maybe 4 or 5 hours from now. So not even a hurricane, it's a tropical storm. But that being said, all of this is a big deal. Tyler, can we put on maybe rainfall rates real quick and just take a look at how hard? I mean, it's still coming. Let's click over here, and some of the darker green. You know, when we make a big deal in our summer thunderstorms, if we have rainfall rates of 2 to 3 inches per hour, that is really coming down. And we have all of the county is probably at least 4. It's 4.4. There's 2.4. And here over here, way in southeastern Polk, that's a 7.2. So if it rains like this another hour, they get 7 inches of rain. This is about the upper end of how hard it can rain. I mean, you can't, it's hardly up to 10 inches per hour. So this is like, you know, standing under a shower. It is in your house. This is really just pounding rain. But I've noticed, though, looking back on this about an hour ago, there was a lot more purple here. So even though this is extremely heavy rain, the heaviest is beginning to diminish a little bit. Can we talk rainfall totals quickly? Maybe we have time to do that, Tyler. Maybe they click on that graphic. And we can go all the way back to Venice and just kind of move the graphic. And this is this, and you know what's interesting? Stop it there. Stop it there. So our northern counties really, I mean, as far as total rainfall, Citrus, Fernando, Pasco, it's going to be generally under 2 inches. And the sharp dividing line is probably like southern Pinellas and then up towards Dade City. These are total rainfall amounts, 0.8, 0.8, 1.1. That's really not all that much. And then it really starts getting higher as you move south. There's a 17.1, 16.3, and then 19.6. The reason why the hurricane kind of looks weird as far as all the weather on the north side, a couple things. Dry air came in from the south, and there's a big high pressure system to our northwest, and kind of the squeeze play between that high and the hurricane kind of produced most of the winds on the northwest side, and there's a trough in place as well. So there you go. Their rainfall totals today, including the one down by Venice at 19.6 inches of rain, which means for the summer rainfall totals overall probably like close to 50 inches for this summer, and then for the year probably 70 or 80 inches for the year. I'm just guessing, and that seems fair enough. We'll be back with more weather updates in a little bit. We going over to is that Scott?
It's Mark. We got a little Bucs news, though. Let me introduce Scott. That's what we do here. We've not washed out our chances of a Bucs football game this weekend at Raymond James Stadium, and some of us are going to need a break for sure. Their contingency is in place, though. What does that exactly mean? Our sports director Scott Smith is here. What'd you find out?
Yeah, well, they got a couple options at this point, so it looks like 2 possibilities. One is what is currently scheduled to take place, which is they play Sunday night at Raymond James Stadium. They host the Chiefs. 8:20 is the night kickoff. If the NFL feels like they need to change venues, the backup location is U.S. Bank Stadium all the way up in Minnesota, so the home stadium of the Minnesota Vikings, since the Vikings are playing this week in London. So we'll have more on that stadium possible news in a moment. But the Bucs relocated, of course, down to Miami yesterday. Today was their first practice inside Dolphins headquarters. Head coach Todd Bowles says they've been trying to keep it business as usual as best as possible. But their thoughts, of course, are with the city of Tampa. There are some thoughts originally to relocate actually all the way up to West Virginia, but the Miami trip was just an easier option, especially since they didn't just relocate the team, but family members and family pets as well. Shaq Barrett says his focus has been understandably divided.
We most definitely checking the weather. I'm looking at the cameras to see like if it's flooding on the street or like anything going on. So I'm locked in with some of my downtime for sure, but I'm glad that everybody who did make it out made it out, and just pray for everybody to stay safe who's still there.
We were just making sure the players' families are safe and the coaches' families are safe and everybody on the staff is safe, so they can concentrate on football. So we brought a lot of them down here. Everybody that wanted to come could come, family-wise and otherwise, including pets. So we got to make sure those people are fine first, because you really can't concentrate on football without taking care of your family.
So the NFL considering the relocating of the game. If they end up moving the game up to Minneapolis at U.S. Bank Stadium, they'll make that decision in the wake, of course, of Ian. May not happen until as late as Friday. Last time a game had to be relocated, it was actually last year's Saints-Packers game. Severe weather, it was Hurricane Ida, forced the game to be moved from New Orleans to Jacksonville. Bull says that it's not ideal, but they'll go wherever they need to go.
we can't control the outside forces. You know, our thoughts are with the city of Tampa right now. But where we have to play, hopefully it is Tampa and everything is fine. That means we're not damaged too much. But if we have to go play elsewhere, you know, we just have to focus and lock in. Nobody's going to feel sorry for us, you know, so we got to be ready to play.
You know, teams put their rivalry to the side today as the NFC South teams reached out on social media, sending well wishes to Tampa Bay. You got the Panthers thinking of our NFC South family in Tampa, stay strong. The Saints thinking of our friends at the Buccaneers as Hurricane Ian approaches. We know the unsettling feeling far too well and hope everyone stays safe during the storm. We are here to help. And then the Falcons. Stay safe, Buccaneers, and the state of Florida. Thinking of you all, hashtag NFL family. So, of course, a lot of these teams have felt the impact of severe weather, of course, during the football season. And the Saints, as we just mentioned, Hurricane Ida was how they kicked off last year. Yeah. And they, you know, ironically came here to Jackson, well, you know, to the state of Florida. So as far as Raymond James Stadium, I mean, I'm sure once they survey things as light kind of sheds a little bit more light on what the status of the stadium looks like and what kind of shape it's in, we should know probably as soon as tomorrow whether or not Raymond James Stadium is a suitable option.
Yeah, let's hope so. If the power is good and the facility is good, which we expect it to be, then we know a lot of people are going to want the distraction.
They certainly are.
The last 2 days.
This is going to be a long week.
Yep.
It's only Wednesday.
Yeah, for sure. Scott, thank you.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, but of course our coverage is not over.
Yeah, we are not done. Please stay with Fox 13. We've got an update from Paul again in just a few moments, so sit tight. We'll be right back.
Good evening, and thanks for joining us for our continuing coverage of Hurricane Ian. I'm Cynthia Smoot.
And I'm Chris Cato, and it is now officially Thursday, September 28th, after what was, for many people, probably the longest Wednesday of their lives. Hurricane Ian came ashore about 9 hours ago. It's now inland, and it's battering parts of central Florida. New images for you here at midnight. This one from space as the storm made landfall this afternoon in southwest Florida. Incredible image here from NOAA's satellite. It shows the lightning strikes right there around the eye of the storm. And again, Ian made landfall around 3 o'clock this afternoon, just north of Fort Myers, Cayo Costa to be exact, the island there, Barrier Island. It was a high-end Category 4 hurricane when it roared ashore. Fox 13 Chief Meteorologist Paul Delgado once again. And Paul, you know, earlier today when we were looking at that coming ashore and we were looking at all that lightning there, you talked about that. And this is it intensifying, right, as it was coming ashore.
Yeah, I mean, it really intensified, Chris, all the way up to landfall. Generally speaking, when you talk about lightning and hurricanes, hurricanes by definition are not big lightning producers. When we see lightning, it just goes to show the amount of instability and the turbulence around the eye. And we use many factors to talk about if a storm is intensifying, but lightning around the eye wall usually means the storm is intensifying. And some of the reports that came in today from the hurricane hunter planes that were in that storm in the Gulf, I mean, I have a couple of my friends are on those planes, and they said probably the toughest ride ever that they've gone through in any of the storms that they've gone through many every single year. Turbulence, plane dropping, plane going back up, trying to penetrate the eye wall, can't get it. I mean, you talk about a ride you'll talk about for a long time. That was the one today. We can also tell a lot by this enhanced satellite view. No sign of any eye anymore. It's just simply a weakening tropical system. The colors of the cloud tops, if you think back to the first couple of frames, lots of dark red and black and brown indicating extremely high and tall thunderstorms. The hurricane is definitely weakening, but this process is slow. It made landfall as a Cat 4, almost a Cat 5, so winding down a Cat 4 hurricane is not going to be a quick process. If this was a Cat 1 making landfall by now, it would probably be a depression. So it takes a while to spin down these storms. Two things, though. The energy source is gone, the water, and the land friction helps to kind of spin it down. There may be some redevelopment out over the Atlantic as it curves back to South Carolina, but it's going to be mainly probably a rainmaker up in the Carolinas. Top winds now down to 90 on the 11 o'clock advisory. Moving north-northeast at 8, pressure is continuing to rise back up to 972. The position is actually due south of Orlando at 27.5, 81.4. This is just about maybe a little bit north of our latitude, and the storm continues north-northeast at 8. Again, tomorrow it is off the East Coast, and then it continues to move away. And thankfully, I think by daybreak tomorrow, it'll be overnight, it'll be a while longer before things wind down. But by daybreak tomorrow, there'll be improvement. We should see the sunset tomorrow night. So here's some radar views. And Tyler, was it Fort Meade?
Yeah, just west of Fort Meade, about 20 minutes ago, gust to 76.
Yeah, Fort Meade, gust to 76. Probably most areas in Polk County where it's raining everywhere. Probably, if you're wondering, in Polk County, I hear the wind. How strong is it, Paul? It's probably upper-end tropical storm, probably like 40 to 60, I would say, in most spots, with occasional gust to probably 75 or 80. I know you saw top winds of 90, but that's not going to be widespread. That's going to be the top wind. And then maybe there's a spot here or here at 90, but probably for most of you in Polk County, it's tropical storm force winds with gusts going over 74, 75, 70, 80. That's about it. What's interesting is I-75 west, the event as far as rain goes is pretty much done. There may be some showers trying to come in on the backside later tonight or tomorrow, but as far as accumulating rainfall, I-75 west for the most part is done. It's still raining heavily in sections of Hillsborough County, eastern Hillsborough County, Sun City Center, Fishhawk, Lithia, all the way up to Plant City. It's still coming down pretty good. And also into sections of eastern Pasco County, still coming down good. There's areas of rain still trying to spin back. But as the storm continues, we call it to fill or weaken, this line is going to weaken as well. Dade City, Wesley Chapel, this was a good spot. By the way, for folks that wanted to get away from potential storm surge flooding, this would have been a good spot to go to because the weather up here was not as severe. A lot of you already did the Orlando thing. I have friends that went on the East Coast to Vera. I always say, if you want to escape storm surge flooding, make your trip as short as possible. Driving across the state and dealing with all the hazards as far as traffic, I know you probably say, let me find a nice spot, but areas where you're driving a half hour to 45 minutes, to me, makes more sense than going all the way across the state to the East Coast. But I mean, whatever works for you. This is light rain up in Citrus, and then steady rain through most of Hernando, steady rain in Pasco, but again, nothing that's too severe, just light to moderate rain and gusty winds. And then the rain continues south through all of Hillsborough and all of Pinellas counties, and it continues to kind of rotate in from the west and southwest. We'll continue to update radar views the rest of the evening. We're on this, and again, if you're watching me in Polk County, this will eventually kind of rain itself up, but the process is going to be slow. Another 3, 4, 5, 6 hours to go. Back to you.
Which gives us a good reason to check in Polk County, where people, as you just heard Paul say, are feeling those tropical storm winds tonight with debris blowing around, wind gust. Fox 13's Jordan Bowen is in Bartow. So we're checking in with you, Jordan. We just heard pretty windy out there tonight in Polk County.
Well, Cynthia, the strength of this storm has not let up here in downtown Bartow. We have been out here for several hours. The rain continues to come down. The wind gusts have maintained steady since we've been out here, sweeping debris, everything from branches to twigs to big 20-foot-long tree branches, big pieces of plastic and metal, even pieces of glass like this flying around this downtown area here in Bartow. It has been a very strong storm out here. We're going to show you just a little bit of what you can see. These are some shops here. Several of the shops have sandbags, and a few of them have sustained some pretty significant damage. A lot of the overhangs, the awnings have been ripped off. We witnessed the cookie jar bake shop, the awning there, the metal get twisted and bent. And when you see these large pieces of debris just flying down the street, you can hear the sounds echoing from the buildings when they hit into the power poles and the light poles here in downtown Bartow. We have been out here in Bartow for the last since about 5 o'clock this evening. We were by the Hampton Inn on Old Eagle Lake Road earlier today. That's where we witnessed a transformer blow up, a small fire started and was put out. We also saw the Bartow Shopping Center. A lot of the awnings there had been ripped off. We've also seen the metal signs just vigorously flapping back and forth in the wind. I can say that the wind gusts have been the same, if not stronger, since we checked in with you about an hour ago. The rain continues to come down here in downtown Bartow, and even debris like this sign from one of the shops here, just stuff like this just flying around the streets here in downtown Bartow. And like I said, when you hear you not only see it coming down the street, but you can hear it echoing from the buildings here. And it's just been the same here since we've been out here. Piles and piles of branches and leaves are scattered all across the streets here. Just from the few hours we've been out here, we've just continued to see the streets pile up with piles of debris. I think I had seen an office just right across the street. A large brick had I think the winds pushed it through the window, and a window was shattered. But that's exactly why officials don't want people out here, because this debris is flying around. Right in front of me is the large concrete courthouse, so we have protection from the wind where we are. We are staying very safe out here, and it's good news to report that we have not seen any people out here walking. The last caller we saw out here was several hours ago, so people are heeding the orders, staying inside as this storm continues to pelt us here in Bartow. Cynthia?
All right, you've got a few hours left to go, so hang in there. Thank you so much, Jordan Bowen.
And we'll stay in Polk County now with Fox 13's Craig Patrick at Polk County's Emergency Operations Center. If I can get it out there, Craig. He's been getting updates there all evening. What can you tell us?
Well, we're in Winter Haven, and in Bartow, you saw the reports and saw the winds whipping around debris, the reports of that brick going through a window. That's the very reason why the EOC is locked down. The shutters are down. They have been since around 7:30 this evening. We are getting widespread reports of down trees, down power lines. At first, it was to the south end of the county, the southwest in particular. Now it is definitely countywide. In terms of power outages, about 1 hour ago, there were 115,000 reports of power outages across the county. That accounted for technically 31% of the county. Within the past hour, that has gone up from 31% to 35%. But keep in mind, those percentages are likely very, very low, because that's just the reported percentage of outages. caused by wind damage. There's also the obvious and very real concern of flooding damage too, and the risks of flooding yet to come. And on that point, we'll start with perspective on the Peace River Basin, again in southwestern Polk County, and more perspective on what we're finding and not finding at this point from the Director of Emergency Management, Paul Womble.
We don't have any confirmed reports around the Peace River yet, but this is the type of rainfall that's falling now, several inches per hour, and the storm just looks like it's really slowed down on the radar, and so folks just really need to hunker down tonight. Heard about the wind, the rain, stay home, the roads are not safe, and don't come out tomorrow until it's safe. It's going to take quite some time.
And by some time in parts of the county, that could take us beyond tomorrow morning, even beyond tomorrow afternoon, he said. And even after the storm passes and the rains and winds settle and clear, that doesn't mean that you're in the clear in terms of flooding. For example, the Peace River, you could have flooding concerns after the storm passes, a day or even 2 days thereafter, because it can take some time for all the rain to filter through the creeks that filter into that river.
And Craig, we don't want to harp on this too much, but we should mention it again since tomorrow will be a big day of cleanup beginning. You pointed it out yesterday in one of your reports how most of the fatalities and the injuries that occur from a hurricane actually occur after the storm has passed, when people are perhaps operating a chainsaw for the first time ever or in a long time, or using a generator. So everyone keep that in mind as you're out there tomorrow trying to clean up your property, right?
Absolutely. With generators, do not put that gas generator in your house or in your garage. Keep it 20 feet away at least. Make sure the exhaust is not blowing in. That is carbon monoxide that can kill you. If you don't use chainsaws regularly, don't use them in this case. You never know where there are down power lines, maybe in a part of a tree you can't see, or even floodwaters that you can't see as well.
Okay. Best of luck to everyone out there in Polk County and all over the area. Thank you, Craig.
And check out that scary piece of video. This is out of Auburndale tonight. Several transformers blew up, sending sparks flying through the air and people running for cover as Hurricane Ian passed over. More than 1 million people without power tonight. I think 1.8 million was the last number we got as the Ian makes its way through Florida. And Fox 13's Catherine Hawley has a look at the outages. So Catherine, what's the latest?
Well, Cynthia, we are at Tropicana Field, and you can see behind me there are a ton of trucks here. These trucks are parked and ready to roll as soon as it's safe. This is actually one of 3 staging locations across our region for those crews who came to town to help make repairs. And Duke Energy tells me that they should be out tomorrow assessing the damages and getting to work. At last check, about 187,000 Duke Energy customers are without power in Pinellas County. Around 10,000 crews have been mobilized from other states to help restore power. We're told the first priority for the utility company will be fixing large power lines and other infrastructure that will get the lights back on to the greatest number of customers the quickest. However, Duke tells me they have self-healing technology on about half their lines, so many outages can be fixed without ever needing to send a crew. Last year, this prevented 17 million outage minutes for customers and likely kept the lights on for folks today.
Much like the GPS system that you use to reroute around bad traffic, we have similar technology on those lines. So what that means is if the line feels that it's experienced some sort of power outage, like a tree that hit a line, it literally reroutes itself without any intervention from humans.
Now, we have seen dozens of intersections with failed streetlights, downed wires, sparking and smoking, and massive trees falling on lines. Officials say folks need to avoid all power lines that are down or sagging. They should be considered live and energized, along with anything touching the lines like trees, limbs, or fences. Now, here in St. Pete, teams from the city will be out tomorrow as soon as the sun comes up to start assessing the damages and clearing debris on the streets so these workers can start making those repairs. Cynthia?
Yep, won't come too soon for a lot of folks we know. Thank you so much, Catherine.
That's a good point she brings up, too. We're going to have so many traffic lights not working tomorrow, and people will get out and about and start looking. So you have to treat those as a four-way stop.
That's right. Do that.
If you get there at the same time, yield to the driver on your right, and it all works very well, right?
Exactly.
All right, we're going to bring in Tyler Eliason now with a look at where things stand with this storm. It's still a hurricane at this point, but thankfully so much weaker than it was a few hours ago.
Yeah, still at 90-mile-an-hour winds. We should get an update shortly from, let me see if it's in real quick, from the National Hurricane Center. It's just going to be a gradually winding down wind speed with the storm. And at this point, I mean, it's really just a lot of wind and a lot of rain. And the worst of it is in Polk County. I'm looking at some wind speeds here. And you go back into Hillsborough County and Pinellas County, and they're dropping substantially. Just had a gust at McDill, 48. So there's still going to be those spots where you get some tropical storm force wind gusts. St. Pete is down to 30, 24 over in Clearwater. Manageable stuff through most of Hillsborough and Pinellas County, but through a lot of Polk County, 50, 60-mile-an-hour wind speeds with some of these bands that are still spinning down. But this is a substantially different looking storm, right, than what we had at 1, 2 o'clock this afternoon with a well-defined near Cat 5 hurricane that made landfall down near North Captiva Island. It feels like a day ago, right? This is a very slow-moving storm. And we're almost through here. This is still going to take a few more hours for you guys in Polk County. And I know it sounds rough outside, but this is not damaging stuff that we got going on right now. You may certainly get a carport that goes flying or something like that, but in a well-built home, we can take 50, 60, 70-mile-an-hour winds, no problem. It just doesn't sound great outside. Some of this is still really heavy rainfall as well. Pretty much all of Polk County is in some rainfall rates that are still approaching 5, 6, 7 inches per hour. We do get that occasionally in our heaviest of summertime thunderstorms, but it lasts like 15, 20 minutes. So you don't get 5, 6, 7 inches of rain over the course of an hour. In this, it's lasting an hour or two, if not longer, in spots with those rainfall rates. So what we've seen really in the last 3, 4, 5 hours is that swath of heaviest rain that started down near Venice in all of southwestern Sarasota County. It's kind of like this. If you're watching us right now versus looking at or listening to us on the radio, it's really like Venice up into southeastern parts of Manatee County, Hardy County, and now extending into Polk County, where we have a swath of 10 to 20 inches of rain. And a lot of that has come down in the last 12 hours. Rainfall totals approaching like 20 inches in Venice. And I think when we're said and done around Polk County, by the time the rain stops, we'll be kind of getting close to that. 15 inches, a good bet across a lot of Polk County, especially southern Polk County. Many places near the coast are pretty much done with the rainfall. The winds are still gusting. I stepped outside the station here along Kennedy 15 minutes ago, and it was still blowing pretty good. Again, some 30, 40-mile-an-hour wind gusts, but decent sleeping weather, if you will, for a lot of folks around Tampa Bay. Man, we just really avoided the worst with this, which is fantastic news for us. But as I told you a couple of days ago, I remember Paul and I were on the air Monday night. It was a no-win scenario. Someone was going to get just hammered by this, and unfortunately that was down towards Cape Coral, Port Charlotte, Fort Myers Beach. Just nerving to see what we're going to witness in the coming days with the video and pictures that come out of there.
Guilty, right, knowing that you know a lot of us can sleep soundly tonight, and so many others down there won't have a place to sleep for a while. We'll help them all as much as we can. Thanks, Tyler. Sarasota County, which did get hammered pretty severely earlier today, they're still under a flash flood warning. Is that still active, Tyler? Flash flood warning for Sarasota?
Yes, until 1 a.m.
Until 1 a.m., which is tough because, you know, earlier that county was hammered by coastal flooding from storm surge. Fox 13's Brianna Arredondo still live at the Emergency Operations Center tonight. Brianna, what's the latest? It's late.
Yeah, it certainly is, and folks are still awake here, making sure that they are taking care of residents as those calls continue to come in. Crews right now are getting ready to head out later on this morning to start checking on infrastructure, seeing what is damaged, and trying to help people who may be stuck inside of their homes, as well as starting to restore power and getting those down lines up and off of the ground and back connected. Now, crews are in different parts of the county right now, and
ready to go to different neighborhoods later on this morning. They do, of course, need daylight in order to see the extent of the damage and make sure that they are getting all of the debris off of the road so that it will be safe to travel. Workers here at the Emergency Operations Center have been taking calls from people who have been asking about when they can go back home or even go to work. And of course, you know, it's way too soon for that. But they have been taking thousands of calls from residents, of course, getting them through the worst of this storm.
Just keeping them calm, you know, being very informative and making sure that the information is understood and making sure that the immediacy of the information comes across without being alarming.
And the emergency management chief says that people in Sarasota County should focus on staying where they are for the time being and letting these response crews get out and do the work that they need to do in order to keep everyone safe. There are over 1,000 National Guard soldiers who are ready to go later on this morning to start helping with recovery and relief.
Yeah, Brianna, you did say earlier, and maybe you just mentioned it again there, that at one point I know there were some people who had stayed behind that they were, you know, trying to get in touch with, that where they had lost communication, and that was an area of concern there in Sarasota County.
Yeah, the emergency management chief actually told us that they lost contact at some point over the night last night with the southern part of the county. They lost communications, but, you know, they restored that back up so that way they can continue to make sure that they can get whatever help that's needed down toward those folks and continue having that communication in terms of conditions as they progressed.
Yeah, that's good news. They'll be very busy tomorrow, we know, reaching out to everyone and checking on them. Thank you, Brianna.
Well, Bayshore Boulevard in Tampa was quite the social media magnet for a while today. Check this out. People just had to stop what they were doing and get out and take a picture because Ian sucked all the water out of Hillsborough Bay. And look at that, the bottom for as far as you could see. Fox 13's Evan Axelbank got to speak to some of the gawkers. And the first question I have is the water coming back in yet?
Yeah, maybe just a little bit, Cynthia, although right now you can see that we are still getting pretty strong gusts here on Bayshore Boulevard and Howard. You can see right now there are still some gusts going through there, just judging from the tarp that you see and then the trees that are there. We do see some traffic on the road, so while it may not be quote-unquote safe to be out, it is certainly not what it was here just a couple of hours ago. Things have slowly decreased in strength here and in power. The rain has slowed down, the wind has slowed down, but we are still getting gusts. So the storm is certainly not totally past this area of Bayshore. Let's show you what it looked like a little bit earlier right now. Before the sun went down, there were dozens of people down here who wanted to see this for themselves. We watched some people walk hundreds of feet out to where the water started again, maybe as long as 2 football fields away from the shore. The police were unhappy because it is obviously a safety issue given the unpredictability of the situation. They also didn't want cars parked on the grass median. Police came and closed off the area until the sightseers left. People here say it was an unforgettable sight because it's a view of Tampa that you seldom get to see.
Gone and drained, it's insane. It's like mind-blowing to see that nature could do that.
I enjoyed everything about it. It's very mindful, like very peaceful. You get a different view at life. I mean, it is a serious moment right now, but that right there takes a lot off your mind.
We have video of one sightseer who needed help freeing themselves from the mud, which only got worse as the night went on. Lots of people had plenty of well wishes for those who are down south. Obviously, Cynthia, given what we're seeing here on Bayshore Boulevard, it is nothing compared to what they had down south. So it does make this, frankly, just a little bit awkward, you know, knowing that here, you know, we have people gawking and looking at the sights, and down in Fort Myers and Sarasota, things are the real deal.
One of Mother Nature's oddities, and people just, you know, have to stop because it's not something you see every day. Thank you, Evan Axelbank.
All right. We're bringing back Paul now.
That's what I hear.
Yeah, more Paul.
Probably too much Paul, to be honest with you.
No such of a thing.
Yeah.
This is prime time.
Because less of me means less weather, and right now we could use less weather. overall. Anyways, I'll carry on, and we're just kind of watching the progression of this storm, which we knew all along this was not going to be kind of an in-and-out storm, as some hurricanes can be. Some hurricanes will move south to north across state 20, 25 miles an hour, and you get 6 to 8 hours of bad weather, and it's over. This was not ever going to be one of those situations. There's definitely signs when you look at the radar. And Tyler, is there any way that we can kind of go back? You know what? Let's do this. Let's go back 12. Let's do something. Let's kind of get crazy here and go back 12 hours and just kind of watch the progression and watch the clock. And I think when you look at the clock and you watch the circulation, you get a sense how it is weakening because the eye becomes less defined. But you also get a sense of how slow everything is. This is 9 o'clock at night. We'll run this a couple times. This is 10 o'clock, and that is 11:50. So when you compare that frame and go back to the first frame, without a doubt, the storm continues. We call this the storm's kind of filling in. The pressure is rising. The eye is no longer really discernible on radar. And it's just a case of the overall circulation of the hurricane spinning itself out. But, you know, it takes a while. It was a major hurricane, and even over land, it takes a while for it to spin out. Talked to some friends up at our Fox station in Orlando who said it's really coming down in Orlando. So the heavy rain is moving more towards the East Coast. This is at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. This is when it was really bad for our friends in Venice, Englewood, and Northport. And then Hardy County had a really tough time this afternoon, Northern Highlands County, and then all of Polk County. Let's go live, and we'll kind of zoom in on how things look as we kind of pivot the radar in. The good news is I-75 west, the rain event, as far as the heavy rain, is essentially over, and just about to, let's see, almost to the county line, like Plant City to the west in Mulberry, everything east of it. So it's really a big Polk County event now in almost all of our locations. And you talk about Bartow and Lakeland, Auburndale, Polk City, Fort Meade, Frostproof. Don't want to forget anybody. Winter Haven, Haines City, Dundee, Polk City, all getting moderate, in some cases, heavy rain. And if you're wondering, if you're at home right now or you're listening to me on the radio in Polk County, and you're wondering, that wind is howling, how fast is the wind outside? It's probably 50 to maybe 60 miles an hour in most places, with gusts a little bit higher. I don't think there's really any area in Polk County now that has sustained hurricane force winds. It's mainly tropical storm force winds, which are strong and they're loud, but to have sustained hurricane force winds in Polk County, even though it looks red and yellow on the radar, I just don't think we're seeing that now, and that process of weakening will continue. It just takes the time, and when you wake up tomorrow morning, if you get up around daybreak, a lot of this is going to be off the East Coast. Again, it's just the process we said earlier is ponderous. It just doesn't seem like it wants to end. We'll show you additional radar views. We'll head it to the south, down by Bowling Green, and we'll also show you Tyler, let's actually show Fort Myers for a second, because at least for them, the rain has come to an end. So when they wake up tomorrow and they survey, which is going to be a really ugly scene, unfortunately, and it's just a bad situation, the weather's going to be okay. There could be a passing shower. As far as rain goes, it's over. The winds have diminished quite a bit. But these are all the spots. And you can see all these various little inlets as you move through downtown Fort Myers. You know, the water in Fort Myers, right up through the river, and it really piles up. And all the way down to Bonita Springs and Naples. And then, of course, landfall was in the exact same spot that Charlie made landfall. The northern part of Captiva is where landfall was earlier today. And now, again, the storm is far removed. So we're going to get some video. And I really, tomorrow morning, I'm really just concerned about what we're going to see, not only for them, but everyone along our coast. Even Sarasota County had a really tough time with sustained winds 100 to 105 for many hours in Sarasota County, and now the storm continues to slowly fill with moderate to heavy rain through most of Polk County. Hardy DeSoto is doing better with less rain, but still some winds. We'll have more on this. We're on it. We'll be here for a while longer for sure. Back to you guys.
All right, got a ways to go. Thank you, Paul. In Manatee County, people there are being told to limit their use of water. That includes showering, washing dishes, and flushing the toilet. Fox 13 Janae Lewis live in Bradenton tonight. So what's with the water and not flushing the toilet?
Cynthia, county leaders say that is because 10 to 15% of the lift stations here are without power due to the widespread outages we've been talking about, and that has an impact on the wastewater system here. So, of course, they need conditions to improve for a sustained period of time, and that is starting to happen before they can get out there and do assessments. But they do say they plan to get a generator to these lift stations as soon as they possibly can. But we're talking about hours and hours and hours that we've been reporting of the rain and heavy winds that have brought down trees as well as power lines through the entire county. Florida Power and Light says it hopes that it'll have crews in our area ready to restore power once they can safely do so. Those outages, though, having a lot of impacts on people currently here.
Lift stations are what lift the solid waste out of your sewer system and move it away. So when those lift stations are down, we can't move stuff away. So be sure you judiciously use the flushing mechanism when it's absolutely necessary.
And utility crews hope that they are able to get out first thing in the morning, so really a matter of hours to begin assessments, and then we should have a pretty good idea of the next steps then. Now, it's important to be mindful. There are power lines down, and they don't want you to walk over or get near the power lines because they could be live, and that could have some various serious consequences. One thing to note, though, they are still asking you to shelter in place, so resist the urge to try to get out and see for yourself what's going on. Give them an opportunity to do so, and then they'll let you know when it's safe for you to come out as well.
All right, Janae, so just to be sure, we're talking shelter in place, don't take a shower, don't run your dishwasher, don't wash clothes, and don't flush unless you absolutely have to. Did that cover it all?
Unless you absolutely have to.
Thank you.
You covered it all. You got it, Cynthia.
Thanks, Janae Lewis in Manatee County for us.
Hello, everyone. We are up, we are out, and the water has subsided.
Better news tonight from the Naples Fire Department. Remember earlier today, Fire Station 1 flooded so badly they had to bring out the fire truck? Well, now the water has gone down. It's actually out. But they had 4.5 to 5.5 feet water inside, and there they are pushing the truck out. They were worried it might catch fire and spread to the entire station. They say it actually made it all the way up to the second level. That's where they keep all the gear. So tonight, a lot of the gear is kind of hanging out, so it will dry out. But there you go, in a much better place tonight. And another crew of firefighters in Naples, well, they had to get a ride to rescue. They posted this video to their Facebook page saying, thanks for the lift. A couple of jet skis did the trick when the streets of Naples were simply too flooded to roll out the rescue vehicles. So, hey,
wow.
You know, sometimes you have to get creative. You see the guy wearing his
he's on the back there in his firefighter gear.
His firefighter gear.
You know, that is incredible. First of all, the fact that their fire station flooded. I mean, that's the last thing you want. The people who were supposed to be going out.
They're less than a mile from the water is what I read tonight. So they're close.
And you wonder now if some fire departments that are on the coast like that might invest in some jet skis for situations
they might need some
like that there.
More watercraft, And the storm surge in Southwest Florida, as we know, was pretty incredible. This guy in Bonita Springs, well, he sent video out of the water just rushing into his neighborhood. And this was this morning as Ian was approaching.
We have seen so many. It's hard to just process it all. The images we've seen around Punta Gorda, Fort Myers of the storm surge. There was some great time, and by great I mean just incredibly powerful time lapses out there of the storm surge coming in. It looks like something Hollywood produced, you know. And with Southwest Florida taking the worst of the wrath from Hurricane Ian, crews are standing by waiting for the winds to die down and waiting for the light of the day to come to jump in and help people after the storm passes.
Governor DeSantis talked about some of the recovery efforts at his last briefing of the day.
When I was in Lake City, you had massive numbers of linemen, but you have those staged all over the state. There's now over 42,000 linemen and other personnel ready to restore power in 30 different areas across the state. And those linemen and other associated personnel hail from, of course, many from Florida, but from 27 different states. Of course, our Department of Transportation does have 1,200 personnel on standby to perform cut and toss operations, understanding how important it is to get those roadways clear as soon as possible. Supplies will be brought in by plane, boat, and by high water vehicle. Airports in Southwest Florida do have teams behind, and they are going to work to clear those runways as soon as the storm has passed. We appreciate the Florida National Guard's really impressive mobilization of over 5,000 folks, as well as 2,000 additional guardsmen from other states. They have 9 Chinook helicopters ready to go, and additional 22 helicopters will be coming in after landfall that will be here within the next 24 hours. Kevin will talk a little bit more about this, but we have the 5 urban search and rescue teams. You'll hear from FWC about what they're doing, high water vehicles from Florida Highway Patrol, and of course our Coast Guard partners. There is going to be a massive effort as soon as it passes Southwest Florida to be able to get out, recon the area, and identify areas where there may be in need of rescue services. And some of these counties obviously know where residents decided to hunker down in, so they're going to be looking there first. But this is going to be really, really important to be able to get, I think in Hurricane Michael, I mean, it took a few days to be able to get into Mexico Beach. We have the air assets to be able to recon and know where the response efforts need to go. And so in total, we have nearly 250 aircraft, more than 1,600 high water vehicles, and more than 300 boats of all drafts and sizes, including 250 already in the major impacted areas and nearly 50 that are staged and ready to come in as needed. These include smaller rescue-oriented boats, airboats, and larger boats that will be delivering supplies by water if need be. I want to thank the 26 states that have sent us support, including Tennessee, Virginia, Montana, New York, Colorado, Indiana, New Jersey, and Georgia. I just spoke with Kay Ivey from Alabama, and she's supporting sending some Black Hawk helicopters down to help. Governor Bill Lee in Tennessee fast-tracked a request that we had from Tennessee. We appreciate that. I was also able to speak with John Bell Edwards from Louisiana. They've helped us, but he said, hey, we've got a lot of experience in hurricanes recently, so these guys are good. Ask us. We want to send more. And so we really appreciate that consideration. And if we need that, we certainly will do that. We also understand that people that are displaced are going to need assistance. So the Department of Economic Opportunity has already deployed funding and guidance through community action agencies to help Floridians in need of short-term support, like utilities, hotel bills, and transportation, if they have been displaced by this storm. Please continue to monitor local reports, weather reports. Be very cautious about going out into hazardous conditions, and then once the storm passes your area, just make sure that you're very careful, because there's going to be a lot of things, a lot of hazards that are going to be down on the ground. I know there's a lot of people that have reached out. First of all, I want to say thanks. A lot of people have offered thoughts and prayers for the folks that are in the eye of this storm, and that means a lot to us. There's also people that want to be able to do their part, and so I've directed Volunteer Florida to activate the Florida Disaster Fund, where people can donate. It's much better to donate financially rather than sending items. We have everything we need in terms of the immediate response needs, but there will be thousands of Floridians who will need help rebuilding. And to contribute to the disaster fund, you can visit www.floridadisasterfund.org or text disaster to 20222. Again, that's text disaster to 20222. For those who want to come volunteer, we have an official volunteer portal at Volunteer Florida, and that's at www.volunteerflorida.org, www.volunteerflorida.org, and you can look to see of the volunteer opportunities. This is going to be a rough patch here for the rest of today and into tomorrow, but we understand how significant this storm is. Yes, there'll be an immediate response. response. Yes, there will be things that happen with recovery. Eventually, there won't be much media attention on this as the weeks and months go on. But we understand a storm of this magnitude is going to require an effort over an extended period of time.
Oh, we will have media coverage on it. You can count on that, as we know a lot of you have been impacted by this, and it won't go away tomorrow or even next week. As we've been reporting today, Hurricane Ian is one of the strongest hurricanes to ever hit Florida, in the top 5, and one of the most powerful ever recorded in the U.S. It was almost a Category 5 when it came ashore. It hammered Southwest Florida, flooding streets and homes and buildings and knocking out power to as many as 1.8 million people statewide. Fox's Madeline Rivera has more from Tampa.
Massive flooding and power outages across Florida's Gulf Coast as Hurricane Ian continues battering the state. More than 1 million people left in the dark as Hurricane Ian heads north after making landfall in southwest Florida as a Category 4 storm Wednesday. Ian toppling trees, power lines, and causing serious structural damage in several coastal cities. According to the governor, flooding is now the biggest issue, especially in communities hit hard by the storm surge.
In some areas, we think it's hit 12 feet. Now, it is our meteorologist's view that the storm surge has likely peaked and will likely, be less in the coming hours.
In Fort Myers, a mobile home was spotted floating down a flooded street. In Naples, firefighters waded through chest-high water to salvage gear and to perform at least one water rescue. Numerous calls for help from people trapped inside their homes were also reported in other cities. The governor says help is on the way. More than 7,000 National Guard troops are ready to jump into action once the weather clears.
We're going to go and do whatever we can to help those folks. And so that is those operations are going to commence as soon as it's safe to do so.
While authorities work on recovery efforts, Floridians patiently wait, hoping for the best.
So there's no way out of Florida at the moment, and I'll probably stay here at the airport for the next 2 days and then make my way back to Sarasota. Hopefully still have a home.
To help with hurricane recovery efforts, Governor DeSantis has requested a major disaster declaration from President Biden for all 67 counties in the state. In Tampa, Madeline Rivera, Fox News.
Nice to see Madeline in Tampa. She's often covering stories. She works for the Fox network and is often covering stories in D.C. for us. One of the many crews we've had out there all day.
I'm just sad that her introduction to Tampa has been this, you know.
Maybe she'll come back,
maybe she'll come back sometime when the weather's a little bit nicer. Yeah, exactly. So, you know, one of the things that happens too as the storm, actually they start doing this pretty quickly, and that is once the storm forms, they start sending those big hurricane hunter planes out. I think some of them are actually based here in Lakeland, aren't they? Well, the crew aboard a Hurricane Hunter plane right there in the Eye of Ivan, they had to buckle up for this. Some pretty bad turbulence. And check out the video. NOAA engineers on board, staffers, a guy named Nick Underwood, the crew getting all jostled around, the equipment getting jostled around. The view out the window, and you can look and see, let's see if we can see it here. You see the flashes of lightning that Paul and Tyler were telling us about around the eye. Trying to see that there. Maybe you'll get a glimpse. They flew through the eye of Ian hours before it plowed into Florida's Gulf Coast. And I got to tell you, after hearing the account of the reporter that was on there today and now seeing this video, you know, I think my, you know, any thoughts I had about going up on one of those planes kind of is like on hold for now, let's say.
It can be a wild ride. Yeah, we've got the NOAA Hurricane Hunters out of Lakeland. You got the Air Force C-130s out of Biloxi. And how that works is on the NOAA planes, at least, there's a meteorologist that kind of sits in one of the back seats, and they're all kind of talking to each other on headsets. And he's kind of directing the pilots as to where to fly in the storm, how to get in and out of the eye wall safely. And it's a bumpy ride, but those planes can take a lot. But it's up, down, it's sideways. It's rocking and rolling. Everybody's strapped in. We're really, really appreciative of all the work, all the hours. Nonstop flights, folks, the last several days into this storm from the time it was down in the Caribbean all the way up until it made landfall today, in and out of storms. Really appreciative of the data that we got from that, because it just helps improve the forecast. It's been good stuff. Really big team effort when it comes to forecasting these systems. We're at a point now where we're just kind of winding down the rain gradually. Everything along our immediate west coast is pretty much done with rainfall. You got some drizzle here and there through parts of central Hillsborough County out towards the beaches, and then you go down into western Manatee and western Sarasota County, places that got rocked earlier today. It's gusty winds, it's some drizzle, but the worst of the weather right now is still over in Polk County, and it's probably going to be a couple more hours, 2-3 hours at least, of some heavier rain coming down, but this is gradually improving. Still some 50 to 60 mile-per-hour wind gusts just about anywhere you go in Polk County right now. So if you're still up and you're saying, man, it seems like it's blowing pretty good, how fast are those winds? The max gust that I've seen in the last hour was like 76 just west of Fort Meade. Everywhere else, the max gust 50 to 60. You take away the gusts, the sustained winds have been like 20 to 30. So it's just every 10, 15 minutes, you get some really big gusts to go along with the very heavy rainfall that we have right now. And anything that's kind of broken outside, you think about broken tree limbs, little branches, that's all blowing around as well. So it may sound a little bit worse than it is. If you're in a well-built structure here, it's just the noise that you got to get through, but know that your home is going to get through this and withstand any conditions that we have out of Ian right now. Some of the rainfall totals, very impressive. Just to kind of give you some fresh totals, this is our 24-hour totals, but really most of this has fallen within the last 12 to 15 hours. It's tapered from southern Polk County and northern Hardee County, where you have 12 to 16 inches, and then as you go gradually to the north, it just drops off from there. But we're still stacking it up in several places, and we'll continue to do so. Near 6 inches in Bartow. You get up to Lakeland and Kathleen and Polk City, 3 to 4 inches. Look at Zephyr Hills over in eastern Pasco County, 2.2, and it just drops off from there. So drastic changes in rainfall totals depending on where you go in our viewing area. But the freshwater flooding is immense. The river flooding is going to be a big story as we close out the week and head into this weekend, guys. So we're going to stay on top of some of those river levels to come.
Wow, that's a lot of rainfall there in that purple area. How about some viewer questions? Want to do
Bring it on. I love it.
The viewer mailbag, now that we're kind of approaching 1 a.m. We can mix it up a little here. People have been reaching out to me on Facebook because they want to get to you and Paul.
Right.
Got a couple of good ones. This is from Heather Elaine, and she said her question is, would you consider the path that Ian ended up taking a good example of not getting locked in on that middle line of an approaching hurricane?
That is perfect question.
Did you write this question and pose as Heather Elaine? Is that what you did?
Yeah, it's interesting because you think back to 2 days ago and where that line was, even like Monday afternoon. It was a track like into the Big Bend, and some of the cone was still kind of down towards Cape Coral, Fort Myers, but it was really a sense of how close would it come to shore at that point.
Right.
And it's still the cone that you got to focus on, and there's a reason for that, because all of a sudden landfall point is Fort Myers and Cape Coral, and those folks say, what happened? Well, 40-mile shift, 50-mile shift, and all of a sudden that changes. So that middle line is really just the middle of the cone, but the storm can go anywhere in the cone. And kudos to the National Hurricane Center. I mean, no giant shifts at any point through the forecasting of this storm, and ultimately we ended up at the landfall point that they had 5 or 6 days ago.
On their first advisory,
exactly.
Right?
It was like just south of Tampa Bay.
Exactly.
And that's ultimately where it ended up being.
Yeah.
How about, you want to do one more?
Of course.
Amanda, do we have time? We're on until
it's 1 a.m. Why not?
2 a.m. How about Timothy Crane asks, which model was the most accurate for Ian?
Ultimately, the European, I think, kind of won out with this in terms of the track. It was hinting over the weekend. I remember I was on Saturday night, and we had kind of that track that was cutting kind of right where it is now, you know, over Fort Myers, and it was always kind of hinting at south of Tampa Bay. And it did shift to the west at one point, but it was always kind of locked in on that track cutting across the state with this northeasterly kind of motion, and ultimately that won out. So the European, another win.
So the European seems to have been getting more successful, hasn't it? I mean, it didn't used to be. It used to be GFS all the time. Right?
There's always updates to these models, you know, that these forecast centers are putting in. And NOAA, I have a friend that works at NOAA, does verification for the GFS, and it's a lot of numbers and data science, but you know, they're constantly trying to improve it and go back and look at how they can make it better in the future. But yeah, occasionally it's the GFS. One year it's the European has a good year. It just kind of goes back and forth. It goes to show you that models are not, I mean, we're not model repeaters. We don't just get up here and say the model says this, the model says this. Otherwise, you know, there's no point in having us. You guys could do that. We take the models and make the forecast and take that data and learn from each model run. Each model run kind of has a use for us when it comes to the overall forecast.
So there is forecasting and science you have to do back there, isn't it?
Pretty incredible, too, that we have this technology that we can forecast. Let's do it. I got this question from a couple of different people, so I can't attribute it to one, but they asked basically with the how slow this hurricane moved. Is this the slowest hurricane you've seen in terms of movement, and how could it go any slower?
There have been storms that are stationary. I think we can reference Harvey and what that did. And it stopped. It backed up out in the Gulf of Mexico and then came back on shore near Houston. It was like 4 days.
That's right.
And when it dumped all the rain, it was a tropical storm, but just goes to show you, I mean, it's all about the upper level steering flow and how it all plays a role in that. That played a role in the track of this storm as well.
Yeah. They'll retire this name Ian, will they not?
For sure.
I hope so.
For sure.
No more Ians.
No more Ians in the future.
Okay.
Hopefully no more I-named storms. We've had a long history with I-named storms.
They've been troublesome, haven't they?
Yes, they have. More I-named storms have been retired than any other.
Irma. Was it
Ivan?
Yeah. Ian.
You're right.
There's like 26 of them.
Okay.
Be a good weather trivia question, I think, maybe this Sunday.
Yeah, there you go. Hey, good job, viewers, with those questions, too.
Exactly.
I love it.
Yep. All right. The dolphins, the turtles, the otters, all the creatures that live at the Florida Aquarium can't evacuate for a hurricane, even though they do live in Zone A. And we should say the Clearwater Marine Aquarium, I believe, not the Florida Aquarium, but this is the CMA. So here's the deal. They have a plan, of course they do, to make sure everybody stays safe. The A team, they set up ahead of the storm. They've already come and gone. But the B team is there tonight. They're the ones who spend the night at the aquarium with the animals, making sure everybody's okay. In fact, I saw they sent a tweet out this evening showing a little video of how everybody's doing just fine, having treats, playing games. And then when it's all over, the C team comes in, and that's to help reopen the aquarium.
We have the people that feed them, and then should anything happen to them medically, I want to be here to take care of them. And they definitely, because we have a rescued population, they all have their own set of needs. And so we just want to make sure that we have all of their bases covered, and we're doing the very best for them that we can.
And as I mentioned, good reports tonight. Everybody doing fine. They'll also be on alert, of course. CMA is part of the stranding network, and that means any marine animals who might need assistance after the storm, they will be part of that team network to go to work and rescue if they need to.
Yeah.
You'll be glad to know the animals at St. Pete's Sunken Gardens are safe too. They posted this photo to social media tonight saying the flamingos, well, I made this up, are flamingling in the bathroom tonight. So you can see the flock is just fine as long as they're together. You know, they just have to hang together.
What is it about them? They love to be bunched up together.
They just want to be a flock.
Flamingling.
Flamingling.
That's good. That's the second phrase you've coined tonight. Can I give you credit?
Go ahead and give me credit.
Okay, so when we saw the video of the water going out of the bay, she called it storm suck. Not storm surge, storm suck. And I kind of stole it from her and,
he did steal
and ran with it.
But he delivers it so well, so I'm like, you just take storm suck anyhow.
Nope, you're storm suck now. That's it's back to you.
I think it could become a hashtag myself, but
I think it already is. All right, remember, if you want to stay up to date with us, no matter the hour, we're on 24 hours with this right now. MyFoxHurricane.com, that has all the models that Tyler was talking about earlier. The same stuff they're using and looking at, you can track it along there too. County by county guide as well for emergency information and so much more. We're also on our app as well. If you have lost power, maybe you're listening on your device, your tablet, and watching, you can pull us up on your Fox 13 app, and you can also listen to our simulcast on several radio stations. There we go. Hot 101.5, 97X, which is HD only station there. It's actually 101.5 HD2 and 102.5 The Bone.
Yeah, at least we think they're still doing that, but just in case. And if you're out of power, then, you know, it's going to be tough any way you cut it. So, and keep your phone for what you need tonight, you know, and it'd be nice if you could watch us on the app, but we understand if you don't have power, you can't recharge your phones, well, then you have to.
I had Facebook messages from viewers saying they are in Polk County and they're listening to us on radio and on and through Facebook, I guess through a radio app on. And so they also asked us if we could, when we're referencing video, to be specific because they can't see the video. So if we could say, hey, yeah, look at this situation here in, you know, Cape Coral or wherever it is.
Exactly. All right, and we will be right back.
We are back just as we promised, our continuing coverage of Hurricane Ian now in our 1 o'clock hour as we're just approaching 1 o'clock now.
Yep, and of course the storm still out there passing through the inland parts of the state now. And we've heard from Governor DeSantis a number of times today. And as we move into Thursday, now we begin, or we start tomorrow with the search and rescue.
As soon as it moves beyond Southwest Florida, you're going to see a massive surge of personnel and supplies to be able to help those who are in need, get people back on their feet, and help to rebuild those communities.
All right, so those rescue operations, they need two things to happen. They need the winds to drop below 45 miles an hour. More importantly, they need daylight to be able to see what they're doing, where they're going, what's in the way. And, Paul, that means a lot of people, of course, are really hoping and praying for daylight to do that. But we still have several hours of nightfall to go.
Yeah, and it seems like it's always worse at night. If we had this radar presentation and it was 1 o'clock in the afternoon, it probably wouldn't feel as bad as it does when you're in a home and maybe without power and every sound is kind of exaggerated outside. There's no doubt when we look at the radar presentation the past hour, the weakening process, if anything, appears to be accelerating. There's areas of heavy rain that's now kind of moved up towards Kissimmee, and the heavy rain through Polk County is kind of like along the county line. It's still coming down in Plant City. Some of the rain bands are moving back to I-75 and the fairgrounds, down to about Fishhawk and near Sun City Center. But the overall trend is still distinct weakening. And if you're asking me, okay, well, I'm watching you in Bartow, I'm watching you in Lake Wales, I'm tuning in Winter Haven, Haines City. What are the winds outside my house? We don't have observation stations here, but it's safe to assume they're probably about 40 to 60 with a few higher gusts, but I don't think we're seeing a lot of sustained winds in the county at all that are above hurricane force. But still, it's loud. It's been a long night. It's been a long day. And you just kind of want it to end. It's like, can we just get done with this, please? And it will. When you wake up tomorrow morning, let's say you get up around daybreak, which is around 7:15, 7:30, this is going to be off the East Coast. There may be some areas of light rain, but in about 4 to 5 hours, a lot of this is going to be gone. The rain is trying to move back to the West Coast, but at the same time, the storm is going north and northeast and moving away. The winds are still blowing north. There's no sign of any storm surge coming back. I don't think there'll be a big deal with storm surge numbers in Tampa Bay. Water levels may get a bit higher when the water comes back, but we're not talking any big storm surge events in Tampa Bay north, and that certainly is good news. So rainfall totals are going to be record levels in some areas, and it's almost as though we had most of the rainy season happen just in one day as far as total rain goes. We had amounts we were clicking on earlier. What is it? That one is 18.9. We had like a 20 or 19.9 somewhere in Venice. But it really is kind of a sharp line where if you go from like Largo to Tampa to about Zephyr Hills and then up towards about Claremont, northwest of that, all it really was today, and I'm not saying it was a picnic, but Citrus, Hernando, and Pasco was a windy and squally day. We really had radar presentations today that was the definition of squalls. These little narrow lines of moderate to heavy rain that were whipping from east to west, where it would come down in buckets, it would stop, it would do it again. That is, so what is squalls? Those were squalls. They're gone now. The rainfall totals will continue to add up, especially up by Orlando. But these numbers, and this is a color in the scale that we rarely use, the white color. And we've never been in that area in a long time. 15, 20 inches of rain. It's incredible. And then up by Sun City Center, also about a half a foot. And Bradenton up around 8, 9 inches. So do you want to, let's go back and do the long range 2-hour loop as far back as we can go, Tyler. Let's go whatever. Let's go back 12, 18, whatever we can go back. No, we can go back 12, right?
Yep.
And we can just watch this together as the storm moves onshore this morning. Makes landfall about 3:05 in the same exact spot that Charlie made landfall. And then the storm slowly fills in, and it was really rough in Hardy County for a while. And then the rain continues to diminish, and now it is just mainly through Polk County and then right along I-75. And you go from a Cat 4 almost to Cat 5. And on the next update, this is probably going to be either a Cat 1. We're getting almost close now where this is going to be a tropical storm because we're overland. We're away from the water source, and the weakening process is going to kind of accelerate the next couple of hours. So the bottom line is rain gradually diminishing in Polk County. We'll probably see the sunset throughout Tampa Bay on Thursday night, and then the weather through the weekend looks good. I don't want to really, it's hard for me to talk about sports right now, but a lot of folks have messaged me asking me about the Bucs game on Sunday. I know we have more serious things to consider about, but a lot of people do care. The weather is going to be fine. I think the real question is residual impacts around Tampa Bay. How many people still without power? What's the airport situation? There's so many little things that'll come into play. As far as the weather goes on Sunday, it'll be great. It's kind of like the byproducts and the after impacts of the storm. So all of that will have to be digested the next couple of days. We'll see. I think they probably will play it here locally, but I don't make that decision. And again, that's something else where we can talk about that in the next couple of days. As far as weather goes, we're slowly improving, and we'll continue to watch this improving trend throughout the night. But now let's go back to you guys.
All righty. Thank you, Paul. Now to Polk County, where, of course, they are still feeling the storm tonight, winds and rain. Of course, that's going on. And Fox 13's Jordan Bowen, he's been keeping us updated from Bartow, where it's been pretty windy and rainy and things blowing around a bit. Has it gotten any better, Jordan?
Yes, Cynthia, it has let up ever so slightly, not by much, but a little bit. The rain and the wind are still very strong, but it has seemed to have let up in the 6 hours that we've been out here. But the strong winds have been throwing debris through the streets. It's everything from leaves to branches to pieces of wood like this. This is a few pounds. I know we have people on the radio, so I want to describe exactly what we're seeing. You can see this and then this piece of metal here. This is from a roof, about 10-foot long piece of metal. And we've been hearing the debris hit the trees and the light poles dinging and banging, and those echoes just make their way through the streets here in downtown. And then you're going to see these trees, several large trees, at least a dozen large trees. I saw a tree 50 feet high brought down by the strong winds, completely blocking the road here. We're here along Main Street and Central Avenue. We just saw some emergency crews pass by us a few minutes ago. We spoke to them. They said the biggest damage they're seeing are downed trees. And if you just look in these few 2 or 3 blocks, it is just massive piles of debris, leaves, branches, trees 30, 40 feet long, completely brought down by these strong winds. Now, we've been out here in Polk County since about 5 o'clock this evening. We first saw a transformer explode near the Hampton Inn. That is near Old Eagle Lake Road. We also saw the awning at the Bartow Shopping Center completely ripped off. Some of the shops here, the awnings have been ripped off. We witnessed one of the awnings at the Cookie Jar Bake Shop. The metal frame just twisted and bent by that wind, and that was one of those sounds that just ricochets off the building. So it has been a very eventful night out here, very strong winds and just heavy rain. So everyone seems to have been obeying the orders, and we haven't seen anyone out here. Emergency crews that just came by, we spoke to them. They said they hadn't seen anyone out here. Everyone seems to be following the orders, and it's important because it's pieces of debris like that just flying down the street, and it's several pieces of this metal debris that you're seeing. We've made sure to stay under coverings. We're right up next to a building, so we're in a safe location, but it is just kind of been, it's died down a little bit, but every so often we'll still feel those strong wind gusts whipping through these downtown streets. So it has died down a little bit, but we've just started to see over the last few hours just the debris continuing to collect along the street here in downtown Bartow. So when the sun rises tomorrow, we'll definitely get a much more better picture of the damage, but it will be quite the cleanup process out here. I know I saw one of the shops, the window was taken out by one of the bricks like this. I'm not sure where this came from, but one of these wood bricks. So there's been some glass. We saw some glass shattered on the sidewalk. So it's just debris of any kind, large pieces of plastic, dumpsters we've seen fly down the streets. So it's just a lot of debris here, a lot of winds, a lot of rain. So it'll be quite the cleanup process come tomorrow.
It surely will. Thank you. Nice job in Bartow tonight. Jordan Bowen, hopefully you can get safe and dry soon. All right, Kate, you just heard Hurricane Ian still making that slow trek from southwest Florida through Polk County tonight, heading for the northeast Florida coast in Daytona Beach. That's where they expect it to pop out into the Atlantic. Daybreak, as Jordan just said, will reveal how much cleanup there is to do, and not looking so good. Fox 13's Craig Patrick reports from the Emergency Operations Center in Polk County.
Well, at this point, around 1 a.m., we had reports of 35% of all of Polk County being without power at this point. But keep in mind that percentage is likely very, very low because that's just the reported percentage of outages. For context, in 2017, after and during Hurricane Irma, we saw 90% of Polk County lose power with a similar track. But one particular distinction here, Irma rolled through comparatively quickly, certainly compared to what we're seeing with Ian. And that means that we could see the same type of widespread outages, if not more so, once all is said and done. And we are getting reports of also, as you'd expect, widespread down trees, down power lines, roads in parts of the county, perhaps many parts of the county. We'll find out by morning are blocked, not traversable because of the winds and also because you can't see, and there are trees down in many parts of the roads. With that, For perspective on the situation right now, based on all the information coming into the Polk EOC, here is the Director of Emergency Management, Paul Womble.
We know we've had lots of trees down the bridge on Highway 98 east of Fort Meade between Frostproof. We know there's quite a few very large trees down there. So it'll take time to get the roads open. So just stay home, hunker down, and wait until it's really conditions approve. And that may not be until tomorrow night or even into Friday in some parts of the county.
And in addition to the winds and all of the debris and all of the downed trees and power lines, of course, there's also a very serious and real risk of flooding. While we are not getting confirmed reports of significant flooding, for example, around the Peace River Basin, there is a concern that even after the storm passes, that once the rain works through the water system, that could become an issue in that part of the county. There are several parts of Polk County that are vulnerable to flooding based on their history and the fact that the ground is already so saturated. That includes northwestern Lakeland, particularly around Walker Road, but other parts as well, and also to the west of Haines City and north of the lake. That is an area, too, that has a history of flooding. That's Lowry Lake, I should say, which can and maybe will be a problem, but we'll have a better handle on all of that once the storm passes and the experts, first responders, check out the damage, and they, as we speak, are urging all of you to not do that, to continue to shelter in place once we know the storm has fully cleared and that the roads have cleared as well. Reporting from Winter Haven, Craig Patrick, Fox 13 News.
Pretty obvious Polk County will need to stay in touch and find out what's going on in these next several days. Now to Sarasota. Boy, hit hard by Hurricane Ian, especially the southern part of the county. They started getting strong winds Wednesday afternoon. Of course, that was just yesterday. That was just a few hours ago. And then lots of power outages. In fact, big power outages in Sarasota. All kinds of debris laying around. Fox 13's Brianna Arredondo reports from that county's EOC.
Crews are staged to head out this morning to check on infrastructure and to see how badly those neighborhoods are damaged. First responders are concerned about people returning to their homes too soon. There's going to be a lot of downed power lines, trees down on roads, and debris. They're expecting a lot of damage, and they really won't get a good eye on everything for several more hours. The Emergency Management Chief Ed McCrane says that they're definitely going to focus attention on Venice, Inglewood, and Port Charlotte areas since those were the worst impacted.
Move around if it's necessary, but then again, we want people to realize trees are going to be down. Some trees that haven't fallen completely can fall. There will be debris piles. Traffic signals won't work. So you need to treat it like a four-way stop.
Public Works will be heading out around 9 o'clock in the morning, but just because you see those vehicles out does not mean that it's the all clear for you to come back and check on your house. That will happen in stages, and county officials tell us that they will make sure to let residents know. The concern this morning is what happens once it starts to heat up with the power out, so they're really wanting to stress to make sure that people are continuing to stay hydrated while they're inside their homes, waiting for that power to be restored. If you're using a generator, make sure that it is not inside of a carport, not inside of a garage, and at least 20 feet away outside of your house. In Sarasota County, Brianna Arredondo, Fox 13 News.
Thank you, Brianna. To Manatee County now, where trees and power lines are down all over the place after hours of strong wind gusts and a lot of rain there. In fact, as of midnight, 135,000 people are without power. That's according to the latest numbers from Florida Power and Light. And residents there in Manatee County are also being told to limit their use of water because of power outages at lift stations. Fox 13's Janae Lewis reports from Bradenton.
Slowly but surely, and I want to emphasize that slowly part, conditions are starting to improve here in downtown Bradenton. There were points throughout the day where we couldn't even see outside due to the heavy rains and the heavy winds happening here. But county leaders say it's important that you don't get complacent and turn into a disaster tourist, going outside trying to take pictures and get a look around of what's going on. The reason why is there are reports of trees and power lines down through the county. They're asking everyone to continue to shelter in place due to safety. They don't want people out on the roads before they've had a chance to go out and to do damage assessments. And at this point, it's just not safe for them to do so.
What happens after the storm we want to remind all of our residents and visitors, when it's time to leave, turn around, don't drown. When you come upon standing water, do not drive through it unless you are absolutely certain of the depth.
Florida Power and Light tells us they have crews from 30 states all over, and they are ready to respond when it's safe to do so. With tens of thousands of people still without power, crews hope that they can begin assessments in the early morning hours as soon as the sun comes up. But until that happens, county leaders want you to conserve water, because those power outages have also caused outages at lift stations, and they want to be able to maintain the wastewater services here throughout the county until they're able to get out there and do those assessments. Reporting in Bradenton, Janae Lewis, Fox 13 News.
Yeah, that's an issue there with lift stations unable to function.
Yeah.
That's why they're asking people to conserve water in Manatee County. And
if
that's
everybody does that, then they can probably get through it okay, you know?
I hope so. That's something that could linger for a while. We've heard reporter after reporter mention when power crews, and not just power crews, but also county emergency crews can get out and start looking, checking on people. One thing, especially the power crews have to wait on with the use of the bucket trucks, is the winds to die down. And I know that's going to depend. I mean, if you look down, I'm sure Venice and southern Sarasota County, those winds are probably good now, but in other parts of the area, there's still some pretty strong gusts.
There could be some spots that they can get out overnight tonight and maybe start to assess and then really get into fixing some things tomorrow morning. But there's still places, I mean, like Clearwater, for example, out on the end of Pier 60, of course, where there's not much friction to slow down the wind coming right off the water. 58-mile-an-hour wind gust at last check.
Okay, really? And that's
then you go into
Clearwater.
like interior parts of Pinellas County, and it's like Seminole 12-mile-an-hour gust.
And people are,
it takes a little bit.
Viewers have been, residents have been without power for, someone in Clearwater, their power went out at 4 p.m. So, and it's going to be a while. You know, that's the #1 thing when you're out of power. You want to know when can they get it back on.
It's true.
And
I'm sure.
We've had many people, of course, we heard from Duke Energy earlier saying they believe in the morning they'll be able to get out and start working.
Tomorrow's going to be the day that they, how many 10,000 crews we heard earlier for a lot of companies is just going to head out and start assessing it. It takes a little bit, and then they kind of do all the fixing stuff. You know, there's going to be spots though in parts of Sarasota County, especially southern Sarasota County, could take a week or two, unfortunately. Just the extensity of the damage.
Yeah, you got to.
That storm surge we saw that came into Fort Myers Beach and over Sanibel, over Captiva, has that now withdrawn?
Yes.
It has.
The water has gone out. We saw some of the video earlier with the Naples Fire Department, all the water that did come up. And now it's dry ground.
It does recede.
It does fairly quickly, actually.
Okay.
It doesn't last all that long. It comes in and does an immense amount of damage, and then within a couple hours it's back out, and you know, the damage is kind of seen at that point.
Right.
Yeah.
Can you time out for us, and you're probably going to do this already anyway, but for our viewers in like North Lakeland, maybe even if we have viewers in Osceola County in that area, when they're going to be clear of these stronger wind gusts and the heavier rain?
The winds will follow after the rain ends. Let's show you radar, kind of give you an idea of where everything is right now. In spots where it stopped raining already, so we're talking along our west coast, you still have some wind gusts, even down through parts of western Manatee and western Sarasota County. There's still wind gusts 30 to 40 miles per hour, so it takes a little bit for the winds to die down. Parts of Polk County, you're going to have gusty winds all night long, still gusting 50, 60 in some of this heavier rain that's still with you. I would say that for most of Polk County all night long, you'll be dealing with at least some tropical storm force wind gust. And upwards over towards Orlando and Daytona Beach, it'll be through probably tomorrow afternoon. They're actually getting a storm surge over on the East Coast right now. We talked about the storm surge on the backside of the storm and the concerns, of course, for that from some folks, but that really never materializes on the backside of the storm. But over towards Port Canaveral, 2.5-foot storm surge just because of the strong onshore flow that they have now. As the center of circulation, what's left of it at least, kind of pivots up to the north and east. So far-reaching impacts from this, and there's going to be really heavy rain that extends all the way up I-4 over towards Daytona Beach. Kind of that swath of rain that we've had that really started back towards Venice of upwards of 10 to 15 inches of rain. Yeah, that's going to extend all the way across the state.
Wow.
Big time flooding problems.
It is covering. Look at that. It's just covering. It's got the state covered there.
And it's a really messy look to it right now. It's kind of like, oh, we're kind of winding things down. It's almost over for you folks in Polk County, but it's still packing a punch with the rain and the wind, and it just doesn't sound great outside when you have 55-mile-an-hour wind gusts and rain kind of pelting your window and stuff flying around. But this is not a situation at this point where there's anything life-threatening if you're in a well-built structure.
Are they still looking at Daytona Beach as the exit for this storm?
Roughly. I mean, you look at it. What point is the exit?
What point is the?
Where is the center?
Yeah.
It's pretty much right now in southeastern Polk County, kind of moving up towards Kissimmee. You can kind of get a little semblance of what's left of a center there, but it's really just a blob of rain and wind at this point.
Okay.
A blob is a good way to describe it.
The blob of Ian.
Pretty remarkable, though, if you look at our viewers, our friends and neighbors there in like Pasco, Citrus, Hernando County.
Yeah.
They've done really well there.
Not a bad day.
Yeah. Pretty good for them. And we know a lot of people from the Tampa Bay area sought shelter, evacuated to Kissimmee and to Orlando, and not necessarily that they're getting blown away now, but it is remarkable that back here at home, some of them have lost power. We're not without power outages here, but a lot of them, their homes have power and they don't have flooding and that kind of thing.
It's interesting. You go back a few days and there's always the question, where do I go? Where should I evacuate to? And many times we've heard stories of this, of folks going to the other side of the state or over to Orlando to a resort to kind of hang out with the kids, and it ends up being worse over there. So you kind of got to be very technical with your decisions. I mean, the best place that a lot of folks ended up, that kind of left those Zone A and Zone B spots around Pinellas County and Hillsborough County. You go to Wesley Chapel, 35-minute drive, not much traffic, and that was probably the best place to go is north in this case.
North, yeah. Exactly.
Well, be careful, everyone out there, if you're listening and your loved ones they've gone away and they're trying to head back tomorrow. Just take it easy, because a lot of people might try to get back tomorrow, and we could still have some debris on roadways and power lines down and things like that.
I would say too, there's going to be a lot of river flooding, and if you're trying to avoid the mass return, if you will, on the interstates, maybe start taking some back roads to avoid some traffic. Be aware of some road closures that are going to be a problem with this, with flooded roadways for at least a few days.
I was going to say that could follow on into the weekend.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Some rivers won't even crest until late Friday night or early Saturday morning.
Okay. All right.
All right. Thanks, Tyler.
All right. Let's check out some pictures from St. Petersburg. Is this live? We got a live view right here. Okay. Yeah. Earlier today, we heard from St. Pete Mayor Ken Welch, and he was urging people just to stay home. Just stay home until daylight to make sure they can see any damage that might be out there in high water. I'm not sure exactly where this is, but I do see water lapping at the dock.
St. Pete Beach,
this is
overlooking both
that is not too, but that's not too bad. You know, look at that. That water does not look that bad. All right, here's the mayor of St. Pete.
We want to ask you to shelter in place, as the worst parts of Hurricane Ian are still yet before us and heading our way between approximately 5 p.m. and midnight tonight. We will experience tropical storm force winds and rainfall, and we're experiencing power outages throughout the city of St. Petersburg. We ask you to stay at home, be safe tonight, and at first daybreak tomorrow, St. Pete Fire and St. Pete PD and our St. Pete employees will go out and assess first damages, fallen trees, down power lines, and make that first push to clear our roads and restore power so that our first responders can begin to move us to normalcy. That would allow Duke Energy as well to get out and start restoring power to our community.
Set me up pretty well there, because we're going to talk about power outages now, and I just want to get to a couple of numbers for you before we go to Catherine Hawley. Just looking at Sarasota County, of course, that was very close to some of the strongest winds. Pretty much every customer there, Florida Power and Light in Sarasota County, is without power tonight. That's over 250,000 people. So think about them tonight if you do have power. And let me switch over to Duke Energy's outage map. You know, they cover almost all of Pinellas County, and they also cover a portion of Lakeland as well. And right now they have about 200,000 out in Pinellas County, and they have 66,000 out now in the Orlando area, which that's ticked up, and that's because that's where some of the strongest wind gusts are there now as well. We also had earlier from TECO in Tampa, Hillsborough County, about 200,000 people without power. So you add all that up, and there are well over 1 million people in Florida without power right now. So if you do have the electricity, count yourself lucky tonight. Fox 13's Catherine Hawley shows us how crews are staging at Tropicana Field and elsewhere to get that power on as soon as they can.
These trucks are parked and ready to roll as soon as it is safe to start making repairs to the power lines. We're told the first priority for Duke Energy will be fixing large power lines and other infrastructure that will get the lights back on to the greatest number of customers the quickest. To make that happen, extra linemen, tree professionals, damage assessment, and support personnel were mobilized and staged at 3 locations: Tropicana Field, the Villages in Sumter County, and Ritchie Bros in Polk County. Places where they were safe from Hurricane Ian, but close enough to get to work quickly.
For this particular storm, we've brought thousands of crews from across the country. So right now, between those crews here in Florida and across the country, we have 10,000 crews standing by waiting to respond specifically for this storm.
We've seen dozens of intersections with failed street lights, downed wires sparking and smoking, and massive trees falling on lines. Officials say folks need to avoid all power lines that are down or sagging. They should be considered live and energized, along with anything touching the lines like trees, limbs, or fences. Here in St. Pete, crews will be out when the sun comes up to start assessing the damage and clearing debris so these crews can start making repairs. Reporting at Tropicana Field, Catherine Hawley, Fox 13 News.
Lines down lots of places, and Tampa Police Department, they posted this video on their Twitter page earlier tonight. Check this out. You see that traffic light right there in the middle of the intersection. They say the traffic light in Ybor City came crashing down right in front of a car, barely missing it. And that was just one way, they said, to say now is not the time to be venturing outside, okay? All right, all throughout Hillsborough County, too, especially in the southern part, we did see some damage, down power lines, toppled trees. Real mess there on some of the roads. Fox 13's Haley Hines shows us what people will be cleaning up over the next few days.
Throughout Hillsborough County tonight, one of the most common things we saw were trees on the ground, big, heavy branches blocking the roads. We're here on Hughes Street, north of 60. You can see where this branch snapped from the tree about 15 or so feet high from those strong wind gusts we got throughout the night. And here's a look at Lithia Pinecrest Road from earlier tonight south of Oak Lane Road. A large tree fell onto power lines, bringing them down to the road blocking the northbound lane. Throughout Valrico, we saw a wall that was knocked over, more down trees blocking roads, and even a heavy branch that dropped on top of a car. And take a look at this mess outside a home on Magnolia Drive in Thanota Sassa. The storm brought a tree onto a carport. The family was outside on the porch at the time, so they're fortunate nobody was hurt there, but they did lose 2 cars, 2 carports, a shed, and part of a workshop, and now left with thousands of dollars in damage.
Well, we've been sitting out on the porch in and out all day, and we hear crashing and banging with the trees around us, and head for the hills when we hear one really close. So we lost power probably half an hour, 45 minutes ago, and we just got the generator up, so hopefully we'll be okay through the night. No sleep.
And she likely won't be the only one dealing with a lack of sleep tonight. We came across some other minor wind damage around Hillsborough. At US 41 and Apollo Beach Boulevard, we spotted an awning on the ground with a bent gutter attached to it that appeared to be blown off a retail building. Not far from there, a bent, twisted railroad crossing gate. And once the sun comes up, we'll be able to get a full assessment of the damage throughout Hillsborough County and the Tampa Bay area. Then the cleanup can begin. And once it is safe to venture out and get behind the wheel, just be extra cautious, take your time, and keep your eyes open, because a lot of roads are going to look like this, whether it's a tree in the road, a branch, down power lines, or debris, and all of that still needs to be cleaned up. Reporting in Brandon, Haley Hines, Fox 13 News.
All right, good job, Haley. She and her crew, all of our crews, did a great job out there tonight. You know, we heard from Mayor Castor yesterday evening. It was yesterday evening now, wasn't it? She and others are still urging people, though, in Tampa to shelter in place, even though you've heard the damage may not be too bad. She wants everyone to just stay in place through tonight, especially when it's still dark, because you might not see any dangers that are in your way.
We have been fortunate to be able to continue to empty out our stormwater retention ponds, and so we'll be able to take more rainwater than we anticipated with the original forecast. But we're still anticipating that we will see flooding, and it will be sometime in the next 24 hours.
And you know, we've all had that moment when you're just too busy to take a phone call, and we've all had a phone call that's just too important to miss. And Tampa Mayor Castor had one of those calls yesterday as the phone rang in the middle of her news conference.
But more importantly, there's going to be down electric lines, and that it's more dangerous after the storm than it is. I think I got a call from the president.
Oh, well,
sorry, go ahead.
Don't go away. We want to hear more. Why didn't she just put him on speaker?
Do you think she looked down? She says, "I think it's the does she have Joe Biden on her?
What if it just says Joe? Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, so as you heard, I'll explain in case you didn't get it. She got a call from President Biden.
Yes,
he was calling her to offer the federal government's full support in the recovery process. She also talked to Governor DeSantis, who made the same assurances. In fact, she said the state has been a great partner with the cities so far, which is what you would expect, right? I think this is one of those few times where political divisions get pushed to the side, and we say we've got to do everything we can to get the people of Florida back on their feet.
Yeah,
I'm the same way. I look at the phone, and all of a sudden I realize it's Dave Osterberg, and I just should have
silence.
Yes, I
just decline.
Yeah, for sure.
Immediately. You're getting ready for Dave to come in here and probably relieve you soon.
He's actually walking aimlessly around the newsroom right now.
So the big question tonight is, for anybody who is still up and watching us, and we thank you, is the worst over for the immediate Tampa Bay area?
It is definitely,
Pinellas, Hillsborough,
I mean, we've had people that been outside here a little bit, and it's just it's a breezy night, gusts 30, 35. Storm surge issue is gone. I really think the issue tomorrow is going to be just seeing how bad it was, because we really don't have a sense. I mean, it's tough to, you get those little people that sending you those little frame grabs and those little pictures, but you realize it's just such a small percentage of what actually is happening. So that's going to be interesting to see the extent of the damage. And unfortunately, it may be a lot worse than we think.
Yeah.
Or assume, I should say.
I know. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not every day a almost Cat 5 comes ashore, and hopefully, those people got out of there in time,
That was one of the, I'll be honest, and I told you.
Yeah.
I told him last Wednesday or Thursday. I came up to his desk, and this is when it was a wave. I said, "You wait. This is," because you could just kind of tell how the atmosphere. We didn't know where exactly it was going to go, but I said the Eastern Gulf. This is going to be good.
You said, I will never forget it. You said, I mean, I've always kind of trusted you when you say that, but you stood there and you said, we're going to have a major hurricane in the Gulf next week, and it could be a problem. I mean, that was like 10 days ago. I mean,
there's we saw the same thing with Irma when way back when I just said, this has got the look and the feel, and you kind of know how the atmosphere is kind of set up, and you kind of realize that
when you've been doing it as long as you have, and that's why we trust you, and that's why so many people like you.
But then again, it gets on to the point where the most difficult part of it was 48 hours in advance, when we just couldn't get a handle of whether it would stay just off the coast or if it would pivot to the south. It was a really tough forecast, and you think you get out to 2 days ahead that we would have this science down to the point we could really pinpoint it. But it's really those 50, 100 miles just makes all the difference.
And by the way, viewers, you weren't the only ones asking them the questions. Tyler started avoiding me. Like, if he saw me coming towards him, he would just take a right, or a left, because he knew what I was going to ask him. And he didn't know any more than, any of you guys did at the time.
Right. Yeah, I opened up Pandora's box earlier and had viewers, I invited them to ask you questions through me, because, just because I know everyone's trying to get to you as well.
Anything good?
We've had some good ones. Tyler stole most of your good ones earlier, but a lot of people, there were a couple that pointed out the accuracy of the very first advisory that the National Hurricane Center issued on last Friday that had the track making landfall pretty much where it made landfall. And so a question was, is this unusual for the first advisory to be?
I think we just kind of know how generally it's just going to go. We just know it's going to go west, then west-northwest, and it's going to turn around the ridge. And just a lot of it's kind of, you just kind of follow the flow, and then eventually when you kind of get to it, you realize that the whole thing was right. It just kind of goes around a ridge, and it's the little nuances that are really difficult. And you know, the first forecast in Irma that came when the point touched our state was a point way down in South Florida. The very first one that touched us was pretty much spot on. Irma, you remember, Irma was even more difficult because Irma did the big dip down to Cuba. If it wasn't for Cuba and the interaction with Cuba, Irma would have been a lot worse everywhere because Cuba actually weakened Irma quite a bit.
Yeah, I remember that. All right, here's the question I'm not sure you've had time to look at. Is there anything coming off Africa now we have to be worried about?
You said that because I took the GFS model and just ran it through its long stretch. And thankfully, there's no L's and no little isobars near us. Doesn't mean, but the same thing happened here where we thought nothing was coming and all of a sudden something started. But for now, I think we're okay.
Right now, we get a little break.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've had busy Octobers before, but you know, we're going to keep focusing on this right now. You know, people had questions that were similar to that. I'm not going to read this one. She wants to know which shelters are accepting, I am going to read it, I guess. Which shelters are accepting alligators? I don't know.
That's in Florida.
People with alligators.
I don't know if she means, as a pet. Is this a pet alligator or just any gator that walks in off the street and needs someone to help them out? No, but a lot of questions about when are these winds going to die down. I'm getting questions from people that are in North Lakeland, you know, Plant City. Hey, it's still howling here. Yeah. Please make this end.
And I think all of the winds now, there's no hurricane force winds in our area. It's just that at night, everything is just loud.
Amplifies, right?
And you start thinking about it more and you're lying in bed and you hear the sound. So I don't think there are any winds strong enough to cause any damage at this point.
Yeah.
That's really what matters.
Yeah. I think, you know, the big thing tomorrow is we're just going to see some incredibly heartbreaking images out of Punta Gorda, Port Charlotte, Fort Myers. And these are the kind of storms that reshape those barrier islands, too. You know?
All down by Captiva and Santa I saw some pictures from Captiva that was really hit hard from Charlie that had that little road that goes right through Captiva with all kinds of damage.
Yeah. I think tomorrow is going to be very sobering in a lot of ways. How about if we show the time lapse that we're getting ready to do next so that Paul can give us a comment on it, because once again this is the time lapse for what happened today in Hillsborough Bay.
Yeah.
So this is like this is the water going out.
Yeah.
There it goes.
I always say think about the power that is moving the water out. Imagine if it was the power moving the water in.
Yeah.
That
would have been very bad.
Right.
Yes. And this is, you guys told us 2 nights ago I
said we'll show you a video tomorrow of the bay being empty.
You did say that.
Because the winds are coming from the northeast, right?
It's actually a very easy forecast. When you're a northeast wind of 40 miles an hour, the bay is going to empty.
Well, don't make it sound that easy.
Yeah. It's extremely complicated. You have to do some geography and some analysis. And
now, is it coming back in tonight?
Well, it has to, yeah. I mean, it can't stay out there forever.
It won't be a flood surge when it comes back.
There's been a storm surge warning. I mean, we just have learned over the years when hurricanes or tropical storms moving away from us, there may be a foot or two above average. There's not going to be 4 or 5 feet of water moving onshore now.
You think that we'll see on Bayshore the way sometimes Bayshore gets
probably not
covered over?
Probably not.
Is there a meteorological term for that? Because Cynthia named it
negative tide.
Okay. Do you want to hear what she called it? She named it storm suck. But I think
that's the best. That is the best hashtag ever. I'm going to.
You think so?
Let me see what that comes out.
You can have it.
Yeah.
She's trying to get rid of it now.
I've been called worse. That's all I'm going to say.
That's not you at all.
So, well, you and Tyler have, have you guys earned your paychecks in the last 24 hours? I mean, really, kudos.
I appreciate that.
Kudos to you guys for hanging in there.
We go into the season now. We go 4 months of mostly sunny and low humidity. So we have to have our days like this.
I know, exactly.
Reap the rewards, right?
We're going to hope, too, this is the only time this hurricane season that we're all together like this.
Isn't it funny, though, how the narrative was for a month. Look how quiet. Look at the Saharan dust. The Saharan dust. Saharan dust. And I had people that messaged me, said, dude, we're not getting anything this year. And I said, all it takes is one.
All it takes is one.
There you go. All it takes is one. It's a bad
I missed the Saharan dust now.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we don't want to celebrate too much either, because we know, as we see in videos like this, that people have been through it, and they're going to have a long recovery here.
Yeah, and this was what happened. This is just one little bit of some of the video out of Lee County, and this is the Fort Myers Sheriff's Office posting video of one of their mobile trailers floating away in the storm surge. And they said this was one of their temporary outreach centers, that it got just pushed by the water off its foundation. So if you have any thoughts about how powerful that water is, I think that's a pretty heavy trailer.
We saw so many videos from Lee County, from Charlotte County, of powerful storm surge, including some houses coming off of their foundation. This is video from Sanibel Island. This is showing rain coming into a hotel there after the front doors were forced open by the wind. You can hear the alarms in the background.
Yep.
And this was scary for people that had tried to ride out the storm there. People are trying to kind of hold the doors closed there to keep water from getting in. A lot of these folks were there just seeking shelter because they didn't evacuate in time. You know, there was that window there where you had to get off of those barrier islands, and they didn't. So they all went to this hotel for shelter, and we hope they're all okay tonight.
Yeah, I hope
we
so.
Really do.
I hope that hotel didn't get anything worse than that. And look what happened at the Orlando airport. Apparently a bunch of people didn't realize what was going on, got stranded at Orlando International because of Ian. The airport evacuated. They shut down everything. The stores, they put the gates up. Look at that. It's a ghost town. Now the only ones left in the airport are stuck there, nowhere to go. Their flights got canceled. Many of them were asked to leave and take shelter, but I'm not sure they really did. An airport employee right there was going around to passengers telling them they had to at least move to the food court, that they would get bused to shelters. And we don't know if that actually happened or not, but you can imagine if you don't live here and you don't know that airport or anything, and now you're being told to go to a shelter in a city you don't even know, that must have been difficult.
That would be unsettling, to say the least.
Yeah.
We hope they're in a safe place tonight and can get to their destination when the airport reopens. And again, these are things we'll look at tomorrow when things are starting to come back online. But again, you know, a lot of people in the Tampa Bay, the Tampa proper area, are feeling very fortunate tonight. They've seen the videos of what happened down around Fort Myers. And people in this area did prepare for the worst, and many evacuated, but they get to come home now to homes that are mostly intact. Might be some limb damage in a few cases. Fox 13's Aaron Mesmer surveyed the damage and has reports from South Tampa.
This part of South Tampa is in one of the mandatory evacuation zones, so a lot of folks who live around here are out of town right now. They left town, they evacuated when they were told to. When they return, they're going to find that this part of Hillsborough County avoided the brunt of the storm. However, there is still plenty of damage. Take a look at this huge tree just south of Beta Bay Boulevard near Dale Mabry. It knocked down several power lines. This block is without power. And this is a good example of the extent of the damage that we're seeing throughout much of the Tampa region. Some more down trees. We saw one over on Cypress when we were driving around earlier in the evening. There are some more down power lines. There are going to be plenty of outages, certainly within over the next couple of days. At some point, we will turn, of course, to the cleanup effort. And Mayor Jane Castor in Tampa says she spoke with President Biden yesterday, and he assured her that both this community and communities across Florida are going to have the federal government's help in that cleanup process.
The White House in the United States and FEMA stand ready to provide us and any of the municipalities, counties that have been impacted by Hurricane Ian with whatever resources that they need. And when I spoke to him, the director of FEMA was actually sitting in his office. And so just an assurance that they had our backs.
And here's something we saw during Hurricane Ian that we've seen during a couple previous storms. Old Tampa Bay receding as the hurricane was coming onto shore. It really exposed a lot of the sand out from Ben T. Davis Beach. It brought out a lot of onlookers. Tampa police had to come out and tell folks to go back home and to shelter in place because at that point it was still uncertain as to what the rain and the winds would look like. Now back out here, you can see that at some point this tree is going to have to be cleaned up. That, as I said, is going to be the next step once everybody comes back into town and surveys the damage. And Mayor Castor says for folks who are coming back into town, they still really need to be careful, especially if they're coming in at night. Those down power lines could be on the ground. They could be active, so you really have to be careful. In Tampa, Aaron Mesmer, Fox 13 News.
Thank you, Aaron. We told you earlier in the hour that President Biden is promising the full cooperation of the federal government and FEMA for all the areas affected by Hurricane Ian, and he's already been in contact with Governor DeSantis.
Yeah, the governor earlier, too, said that he's asked for the major disaster declaration for all 67 counties in Florida, so we'll expect some word from the White House on that. The president is also using this storm, though, as an opportunity to call out the oil and gas companies for price gouging. Fox's Jackie Heinrich has more.
I told each one of them my conversations separately. Whatever they need, I mean this sincerely, whatever they need, contact me directly. And they know how to do that.
President Biden called 2 Democrat mayors and a moderate Republican mayor who are in Hurricane Ian's path, but not Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who's openly feuded with the administration on issues from COVID to immigration. Instead, Biden had his FEMA administrator pick up the phone.
We do not bring politics into our ability to respond to these disasters. We are going to support whatever Governor DeSantis asks of us. My regional administrator is with the governor right now, making sure that we're understanding what the needs are.
The storm's impact may spread well beyond the Florida coast. The nation's strategic oil reserves, intended for use in emergencies like hurricanes, are already at their lowest levels since 1984, since Biden began selling them to bring down the cost of gas. Officials now don't know if there's enough supply to cover the rest of hurricane season.
It all depends on what the impacts from this storm might bring, and so we need to do those assessments after the storm passes.
Energy vulnerabilities also playing out in Europe. The White House offering support after investigators get to the bottom of underwater leaks in 2 Nord Stream pipelines running from Russia to Germany. European leaders and experts pointing to evidence of sabotage amid Russia's war in Ukraine. White House officials used the moment to push a green agenda.
This just drives home the importance of our efforts to work together to get alternative gas supplies to Europe and to support efforts to reduce gas consumption and accelerate true energy independence by moving to clean energy economy.
Not on the White House agenda, any new mention of crime, even as Republicans lean into new polling showing voters trust them more to handle it by 14 points. Last word from the White House blamed the Trump administration for rising crime that President Biden inherited. At the White House, Jackie Heinrich, Fox News.
Jackie, thank you. Okay, imagine flying into the eye of a powerful hurricane like Ian not once, but 3 times. Yeah, how would you like that job? That's what U.S. Air Force hurricane hunters based in Biloxi, Mississippi did as the eye was approaching southwest Florida earlier on Wednesday. They were there, of course, to get valuable data about the storm that helps all of the meteorologists decide just how powerful it is. As Fox's Matthew Seedorf explains, he also got the chance to join what turned out to be one bumpy ride.
Hurricane Ian's relentless 150-mile-per-hour winds and rain shaking this flight crew, telling us to hold on board Teal 71 with the U.S. Air Force as the powerful storm makes landfall. Getting close to the eye of Hurricane Ian, we push through Ian's punishing eye wall with a jolt. Definitely getting more turbulent right now.
I was thrown up into the straps over my shoulders quite a few times and was hanging on that yoke for dear life.
Pilot Patrick Tift, a hurricane hunter with the U.S. Air Force for almost 4 years.
Every time there is a major bump or jerk in the flight controls, my nerves, they jump up a little bit each time, but you just break through the other side and it's peaceful in the eye wall.
Blue sky and sun shining through the eye down on Florida's battered beaches below. Ian striking the state as a Category 4 hurricane.
The reason we're doing this is to improve forecasts to help protect human life.
The crew dropping data collecting devices into the storm.
This basically is measuring the fuel
before the hurricane.
Exactly. To understand, if you know the ocean temperature, can you improve the hurricane forecast?
Flight crews looking out as we leave the eye of Hurricane Ian after a third pass, thinking about those forever shaken by the ferocious storm below.
The work that we're doing is helping save the people out there or probably evacuate the right people at the right time. So I know that it's important. I keep it in my thoughts at all times.
That is incredible there, the work they do. We also know that they have the NOAA hurricane hunters who fly out of Lakeland to do the same job. And look at this view today from space. We've seen all the views from the ground, but how about this? This is what this massive, almost Cat 5 hurricane looked like from a NOAA satellite, or NASA satellite, I should say. But just a classic major hurricane approach there as it bore down on the southwestern coast of Florida.
So I imagine all those astronauts aboard the International Space Station, they had quite a view of this, didn't they, Tyler?
I'm sure they did. And, you know, we hate to use words to describe this that aren't sensitive to the damage that's done, but from a scientific perspective, it's beautiful imagery that we have from space now. And I remember when the GOES 16 satellite went up, I don't remember what year it was, maybe 7-8 years ago. Yeah. It was just such a difference, a drastic difference in the resolution that we had, that we could see down into the middle of an eye wall from how many miles up, and it was like looking down from a drone view into like a stadium, and you get that stadium effect that you see from some of those Hurricane Hunter planes. It's really incredible, the technology that we have to be able to see that.
Yeah. And here's a question I have. You know, what if we didn't have all the people and homes and businesses at risks in nature? What purpose does hurricanes serve, or do they serve a purpose?
Well, it's simply another weather event that is the atmosphere trying to find balance. I mean, that's why we have any sort of weather event, right? You know, why we have a cold front is the atmosphere just trying to find balance. It's a fluid. It all kind of moves around in a way, and when things come together right, you get storms like this. I would say there's a purpose to it necessarily, but it is what it is, just like what happens on other planets.
Yeah.
As we start to wrap up the 1 a.m. hour before we hand it off to our very talented and super refreshed,
you don't see them walking around too often.
I know, it's so nice to see some of them. And
Walter Allen,
we can confirm that
Jen
they are
Epstein over there.
Indeed, usually we get to see them once a year, but they're ready to roll. But let's hit some of the highlights real quick, just from a data standpoint. Strongest measured wind speed today was?
Anywhere was going to be upwards of 140, 150. I'll have to get an exact number for you.
The highest, Coral, right?
Yeah, highest number we saw was Punta Gorda, 124. Landfall was about 3 o'clock this afternoon. Cayo Costa with winds sustained at 150 is the word from the National Hurricane Center.
And that's right there on that Boca Grande channel,
yeah,
isn't it?
kind of North Captiva Island, it's all kind of right in that same spot. Yeah, kind of just west of Pine Island.
And we've heard anecdotal tales of storm surge near Inglewood of well over 10 feet. Is that, we can't verify any of that now, and how do you know, other than a human being there and measuring it?
What happens is now, when they go into survey all this damage and they have to document that storm surge, they'll look at the high water mark in a lot of buildings in certain towns and cities and say, okay, you know, this, and you add it all up and say, okay, we had a 12.6-foot storm surge in this location. It's actually pretty scientific when you see those high water marks.
Is it NOAA or National Weather Service?
National Weather Service, and folks from the National Hurricane Center will go out as well.
Okay, both of them.
So
they have their own investigators that go out and do this.
It takes a while, and there's going to be a big document that comes out with all the information that they gathered. Usually sometime in the spring, we'll get a big kind of recap of Ian and get all the data and put together. And what you'll see next spring is they'll make the official statement that this will get retired, but we know now it'll obviously be retired.
Yeah, obviously. Right.
Okay, well, great job tonight. You were born to do this, obviously. I know people out there appreciate everything you and Paul did tonight.
We're happy to be here and do what we can to help folks through it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tyler.
Thanks, Tyler.
Before we go real quick, let's leave you with this. Before we hand things off to Good Day, you know, rescue teams from all over the state, all over the country are deploying now to Southwest Florida to help with search and rescue efforts once they're able to. Again, we need daylight for that to happen. We need winds to die down. Miami-Dade Fire Rescue is among those who are sending crews, and of course, they're sending some of their urban search and rescue crews that worked that terrible Surfside Tower collapse.
Last year, the entire world came to Surfside, assisted Miami-Dade Fire Rescue with operations, search and rescue operations. Today, the state has called on us to assist them, and I could not have been any prouder right now sending 96 members of Miami-Dade Fire Rescue to render that assistance.
We all are so upset and concerned about what's happening to those affected parts of Florida, and we want so much to help. And I'm so grateful that our great men and women of USAR are able to step up and deliver aid in this time of crisis.
Well, that's what we pray that we can do, is to actually do some kind of some work out there that's going to help people out. I mean, ultimately, we're hoping not to find any kind of casualties or any kind of devastation, but we know that's probably not going to be the case. So we know that we're ready. We're ready to help out in any way that we can.
Well, we know the people that are in Southwest Florida are going to appreciate their help very much tomorrow. We have heard stories on social media, and some of it appears to be supported, that people were trapped on rooftops, trapped in their homes due to storm surge that came in. Were calling for help. They had not evacuated in the Fort Myers area. And we did hear emergency management officials saying that they had lost communication to some areas where they knew people were. They haven't been able to reestablish that. So we're going to hope everything turns out okay for them in the morning. But the thing is that the winds have to fall under 45 miles per hour before they can start sending those crews out there to check on people. And they need daylight, too, to help with that, to help make those rescues. So our thoughts will be with them as they go out in the morning. And we hope they find everyone that stayed behind is okay and just has stories to tell.
Yeah.
Right?
Here is one rescue that's really made social media today, and this is a guy going out while the storm's going on to rescue a cat that had gotten up there, it looks like maybe on the air conditioner. Can you believe this? This is in Bonita Springs, and it was a woman named, it says Mary Beth Ross via Storyful, but I think the origin of this was a woman named Megan Scavo. She said it was her boyfriend who went and got that cat. Look at the water raging around him there.
That's crazy.
Can you believe it? I mean, that is one brave guy, and the cat's fine, and he's fine, and thank goodness for that.
Boyfriend of the year right there.
Boyfriend of the year.
That's something else. That cat has a 10th life now. All right, remember, we're about to hand things off to our dedicated and energized Good Day crew, but if you want to keep watching us right here, wherever you are, as long as you have power, you've got your devices charged, myfoxhurricane.com. You can find all of the models and the tools that our meteorologists use to track the storm and see its impacts. You can find those there, too. There's a county-by-county guide also for emergency information.
Also, simulcasting on Hot 101.5, 97X, and occasionally on 102.5 radio. That's going to do it for us, but we will be right back with our Good Day crew.
morning, everybody. 2 o'clock on this, what day is it? Was it Thursday?
I think it's Thursday.
Thursday, yeah. Good morning, everybody. I'm Walter Allen.
And I'm Jen Epstein. Of course, we are continuing our extended coverage of Hurricane Ian this hour. And Dave, do you need a couple more minutes? I know he's getting some of his maps ready.
I know. Even last night, Dave and I were looking at social media pictures and video and stuff that was coming out of the Fort Myers area. It's just unbelievable.
It really is.
It's just unbelievable, and some of the things that we're hearing. So as we watch along with you, we're going to learn a lot more.
And send us your photos, your videos. If you have any questions for Dave, we'll try and answer them throughout the morning, because we're going to be here for a while.
Yeah, we're going to be here.
We're trying to help everyone out, make them feel comfortable and safe.
Yeah. Dave, where are we at right now?
Well, I got to tell you, for the Tampa Bay area, guys, and good morning. And by the way, my voice will get better as we move along in this coverage, too. Just got a little bit cold. We'll work it out. The event for the Tampa Bay area is almost over, okay? It's almost over. We got to get rid of that heavy rain in Polk County, which is extending up into the Kissimmee area, Orlando. They're getting hit really hard this morning. And once Ian continues to move toward the north and the east, it'll get back out over the Atlantic. But for all intents and purposes, by that point, it's pretty much done here. So the back of the rain, excuse me, the back edge of the rain is now right at the Tampa area. You see that very thin little line of rain, whereas the heavier rain is really confined to just Polk County. So it's just Polk County. We got to get this heavy rain out, and once we do, then we can start cleaning up. But again, being 2 o'clock in the morning, and we've had a lot of rain overnight, I do urge people, if you have to be outside, to be very, very cautious, because there's going to be a lot of roads and a lot of areas underwater that may not typically be underwater. I mean, look at these rainfall totals around the Venice area, 19 inches of rain. In interior portions of Sarasota County, almost 18 inches of rain. Gosh, most of Hardy County, between 11 and 15 inches of rain came down. And in Polk County, those numbers are accumulating as we speak, but you've got between 9 and 10 inches in some spots, they say around the frostproof area, and then it just kind of extends northward from there. This was expected that we would have this heavy rain north of where the center is going to be. Now, technically, the center of Ian is 55 miles southeast of Orlando. It's barely a hurricane now, with winds of 75 miles per hour, and those hurricane force winds would be mainly north and east of the center, so they really wouldn't be in our area. Tropical storm force wind gusts we probably still have, but as far as any hurricane force winds, I think we're pretty much done with that. Brooksville, 38 mile per hour wind gusts, 36 in Brandon. We still have a couple of tropical storm force wind gusts in Clearwater and in St. Petersburg, but as we move forward throughout the morning, hour by hour, those wind gusts are going to start to abate. They're going to start to get lower, and then it's just, again, going to be out of here, and then we can assess the situation and the damage. So the wind gusts will gradually go down today. A couple showers, and then that's it. And I'll tell you what, guys, the rest of the week, wait a minute, is the week over? It's Thursday, right? Thursday, okay, Thursday. So for tomorrow and for the weekend, the weather looks amazing, and I mean truly amazing. And it's not going to be too hot. So for those of us without power for several days, it's not going to be unbearable. We're going to talk about that, show you some of those numbers coming up in a few minutes, okay?
All right, Dave, thank you. And Sarasota County was hit hard by Hurricane Ian. They started getting strong winds yesterday afternoon, and now hundreds of thousands of people are without power. And when the sun comes up later this morning, we'll likely see a lot of homes damaged by the wind and the water.
I think I'm looking at Duke Energy right now, their power outage, 185,000 customers in Pinellas alone.
And we'll be talking with Charlie about that in a little bit, too. Fox 13's Matthew McClellan live in Sarasota right now with a closer look at Ian's impacts.
Matt, bring us up to speed. What's going on?
Yeah, Walter, good morning. The winds Jen mentioned yesterday afternoon, the strong winds, but even before that, you had the moderate winds and then the light winds early on Wednesday. So we're really now 24 hours into feeling the effects of this. I've still got my rain jacket on because here in Sarasota, we are still dealing with the remnants of Hurricane Ian. Now an occasional light shower, and sort of that has really come down more in the form of mist right now. And then the wind gusts still pretty high speed, enough to rock our live truck multiple times as we've been getting ready to to come on air with you. And where we are right now is in one of the evacuation zones. This is a 55 and up senior community, mobile homes, where, this was evacuated because of the concerns over flooding, but it really seems that the wind has now caused more damage than any flooding could have. I want to just show you just a snapshot of some of what we're seeing here. This is a mobile home that the front porch obviously has sort of fallen apart. It looks like what probably happened was the roof came off, the cover of this front porch, and then the sides followed, where the roof is actually just lying in pieces over this way. So they've got all of their patio furniture sort of exposed. The good thing here is that their sliding glass doors intact, this home, as well as the windows. You don't have any broken glass, and like what the material that was on the sides of this was like a vinyl, so not great during hurricane force winds, right? But these folks did evacuate. A lot of the folks that we have been speaking with in Sarasota, taking shelter where we were coming from places like this, not a long distance from the hotel, but wanted to make sure that they were out of their homes, so that if there was a wind event right on them or any kind of flooding around where they live, that they would not be in harm's way. So it's like a ghost town here in this low-lying evacuation zone. We've seen no one. We've seen maybe one car come through, and if you look down where Jason's pointing, the lights just came on as we were getting ready to talk to you. So we heard, we saw the sky sort of light up, heard a loud boom, some kind of transformer activity, and then the street lights just came on. So that is some good news that folks here in Sarasota are getting their power restored. And of course, a lot of folks, even with this kind of destruction, still breathing a sigh of relief that we are not dealing in Sarasota with the sort of flooding that you see in Fort Myers and some of our other areas to our southeast. I'm thinking of Naples as well, Venice, those places. So yeah, you see the wind kicking up right now. Ian is mostly done with us, but not completely. So we're going to be making our way through Sarasota County this morning, really trying to highlight and bring you the direct hits folks have taken. I'm going to try to stay away from your sort of garden variety hurricane debris, your branches, your limbs in the roadways. We know that's there. It's really what's happening at businesses and homes that I want to try and show you this morning, Jen and Walter.
Yeah, and Matt, the fact that it is a ghost town, like you mentioned, I just hope that it's not the fact that nobody's sleeping. I just hope that everybody heeded the warnings of evacuation from mobile home parks, and that's why it's a ghost town.
Absolutely, sure. And through the morning hours as well, Walter, we will begin to see folks coming back to their homes as soon as they feel that it's safe to see what damage, if any, there is to their home. I can tell you this right here is not the case for every home, okay? Like the home next to it, completely intact. Even the garage, the carport on the other side of this this home here, the golf cart's fine, right? So it always works out this way, that it's highly localized damage, not always every single home taking a big hit. So that is another thing to keep in mind.
It really does illustrate why evacuation orders go for mobile homes first. Yeah, just how susceptible they are for hurricanes, for sure. Matthew McClellan, we'll check in with you throughout the morning. Appreciate it. Thank you.
And Manatee County was also hit pretty hard. Trees and power lines down all over the place after hours of strong wind and rain. Neighbors are also being told to limit their use of water. And Fox 13's Janae Lewis reports from Bradenton.
Slowly but surely, and I want to emphasize that slowly part, conditions are starting to improve here in downtown Bradenton. There were points throughout the day where we couldn't even see outside due to the heavy rains and the heavy winds happening here. But county leaders say it's important that you don't get complacent and turn into a disaster tourist, going outside trying to take pictures and get a look around of what's going on. The reason why is there are reports of trees and power lines down through the county. They're asking everyone to continue to shelter in place due to safety. They don't want people out on the roads before they've had a chance to go out and to do damage assessments. And at this point, it's just not safe for them to do so.
What happens after the storm? We want to remind all of our residents and visitors, when it's time to leave, turn around, don't drown. When you come upon standing water, do not drive through it unless you are absolutely certain of the depth
Florida Power and Light tells us they have crews from 30 states all over, and they are ready to respond when it's safe to do so. With tens of thousands of people still without power, crews hope that they can begin assessments in the early morning hours as soon as the sun comes up. But until that happens, county leaders want you to conserve water, because those power outages have also caused outages at lift stations, and they want to be able to maintain the wastewater services here throughout the county until they're able to get out there and do those assessments. Reporting in Bradenton, Janae Lewis, Fox 13 News.
And as we've been saying, a big danger in our inland counties is the wind, as well as flooding, but mostly the wind. Yesterday, a tree toppled over in strong winds in Winter Haven. It was along 21st Street with that video there. Thankfully, it fell in the other direction, didn't hit that nearby house. Or apartment building. Folks in Polk County are really feeling the brunt of the storm right now, at least in eastern Polk County, Auburndale. Heavy debris, strong wind gusts remain to be the big story of that region. Fox 13's Jordan Bowen reports from Bartow this morning.
We have been here in downtown Bartow since 8 o'clock last night, witnessing the strong winds and rain coming down here near these businesses and these streets along downtown Bartow. We've seen debris flying down the street, everything from bricks like this to large pieces of metal like this, trees as high as 50 feet. We've seen several of them, at least a dozen trees brought down by these strong winds, one of them completely blocking the road. Now, we've been out here in Polk County since 5 o'clock last night. Around that time at the Hampton Inn, we witnessed a transformer explode. A small fire started. It was eventually put out. Also there at the Bartow Shopping Center, we saw awnings of the shops ripped off. There's a shop here, and you can see that piece of metal. We have seen that time and time again in these streets of downtown Bartow. And the large pieces of debris, you can hear them echo when they hit the light poles, dings and bangs. We've been hearing those throughout the night and into this morning. We just saw some emergency crews pass by here just a few minutes ago. They said the biggest damage they have seen as the large trees brought down by these very strong winds. And you can see them now. Those are the several large trees that were brought down. We are here near Main Street and Wilson in downtown Bartow. And like I said, the storm seems to at least be letting up ever so slightly, but it has been very strong, sustained winds for several hours out here. It will be quite the cleanup process out here tomorrow, and once the sun rises, we will get a much better picture of the damage out here. But it has been a very long night of strong winds and heavy rains here in downtown Bartow. Reporting in Bartow, Jordan Bowen, Fox 13 News.
Wow, this is scary video out of Auburndale. Hurricane Ian passed over several transformers, blew last night, sent sparks flying into the air, people running for cover. Thankfully, no reports of any injuries.
Yeah, I was just hearing from Kay in Clearwater. She said she watched a transformer explode 3 times. The power went out. And she reminds us, just because Tampa Bay isn't in the path, we're still feeling its effects.
Absolutely.
And that's for sure. And for days, we've been talking about the Bay Area's rivers. Many of them, including the Peace River in Polk County, were already at flood stage before Ian. And that's raising major flooding concerns for emergency officials in Polk. The Peace River has risen to more than 8 feet. As of yesterday morning, 8 feet. And the National Weather Service says it could rise above its all-time record of 11 feet. That record was set back in 2004. The city of Bartow declared a state of emergency in anticipation of considerable flooding.
We don't have any confirmed reports around the Peace River yet, but this is the type of rainfall that's falling now, several inches per hour, and the storm just looks like it's really slowed down on the radar, and so folks just really need to hunker down tonight. Heard about the wind, the rain, stay home, the roads are not safe, and don't come out tomorrow until it's safe. It's going to take quite some time.
And Hurricane Ian made its slow, methodical trek from southwest Florida up to Polk County as it now heads toward the East Coast. And at daybreak, we'll reveal just how much cleaning up folks in Polk County have to do. But right now, it is not looking good.
Right now, more than 1 million people are without power as Hurricane Ian makes its way across Florida. I think at last check, Duke Energy had 185,000 customers out in Pinellas County alone. Utility crews plan to start making repairs bright and early. Fox 13's Catherine Hawley reports from Tropicana Field in St. Pete, which is one of Duke Energy's staging areas.
These trucks are parked and ready to roll as soon as it is safe to start making repairs to the power lines. We're told the first priority for Duke Energy will be fixing large power lines and other infrastructure that will get the lights back on to the greatest number of customers the quickest. To make that happen, extra linemen, tree professionals, damage assessment, and support personnel were mobilized and staged at 3 locations: Tropicana Field, the Villages in Sumter County, and Ritchie Bros in Polk County. Places where they were safe from Hurricane Ian, but close enough to get to work quickly.
For this particular storm, we've brought thousands of crews from across the country. So right now, between those crews here in Florida and across the country, we have 10,000 crews standing by waiting to respond specifically for this storm.
We've seen dozens of intersections with failed street lights, downed wires sparking and smoking, and massive trees falling on lines. Officials say folks need to avoid all power lines that are down or sagging. They should be considered live and energized, along with anything touching the lines like trees, limbs, or fences. Here in St. Pete, crews will be out when the sun comes up to start assessing the damage and clearing debris so these crews can start making repairs. Reporting at Tropicana Field, Catherine Hawley, Fox 13 News.
If you happen to lose power, you can still watch us on your cell phone or your tablet. Just go to fox13news.com/live. Or if you have the Fox 13 app, it's just in the right-hand corner. Look at it all the time. Or you can download, like I mentioned, the Fox 13 News app. You can get it at Apple or the Google Play Store. You can also listen to our broadcast by tuning into one of our radio partners, Hot 101.5 FM or 97X, 102.5 The Bone. We'll also have occasional coverage.
All right, now let's show you some of the video from Southwest Florida where Ian made landfall. These images are from Fort Myers along Estero Boulevard. You can see the storm surge has inundated streets and partially submerged cars. This video was taken yesterday afternoon before the storm surge had even reached its peak. And you're just wishing them the best, my goodness. Here's some video from Cape Coral before the storm made landfall, and look at the damage they were seeing already. Footage from Dale Suslick shows his neighbor's pool, the screen being ripped away by the wind. Pool screens are usually one of the first things to go during hurricanes, and considering the storm surge reported later in Cape Coral, you have to wonder if that damage to that home goes far beyond a pool screen right now. And street cameras show Sanibel Island just being slammed by high winds and flooding as Hurricane Ian moved ashore. Again, the National Hurricane Center said the storm made landfall as an extremely dangerous Category 4 hurricane near Cayo Costa. That's just north of the Sanibel Island. Look at that, bringing maximum sustained winds of 150 miles per hour.
Look at that. Wow. Our Fox weather camera in Port Charlotte captured these images yesterday evening. Take a look at the winds. This is near where Hurricane Charlie came ashore as a Cat 4. This is back in 2004. So we're kind of reliving that all over again. And, you know, some of the images that are coming out of there, Dave, it just breaks your heart, you know it?
How ironic is that this storm makes landfall in exactly the same place as Charlie? That's just, I mean, the entire west coast of Florida, the same place? That's just
feel for them.
It's somewhat of a similar situation, too, because Charlie was heading for us, much like this was heading for us, and then all of a sudden, last minute, it hooks
Was
right.
that one not as strong as this one?
Charlie?
Yeah.
So, Charlie's hurricane force winds, all of them, every single hurricane force wind could have fit in Ian's eye. That's how big Ian was.
Wow.
Being serious, I mean, it's not. It's,
wow.
There was a graphic that I saw. All the hurricane force winds could. That's how large these storms can be, and the larger they are, the more energy they have, the more power they can bring with them. I think post-analysis, it wouldn't surprise me if this wasn't a 5. Okay. Just because it was intensifying all the way up to landfall, and the plane wasn't. I don't think was in there as it was about to make landfall. We'll see. But right now, we just got to get the rain out of here.
Yes.
And it's really only in Polk County. The only heavy rain we have left is in Polk County. You see the spin southeast of Orlando is where the center of Ian is. It will gradually work north-northeast at about 10 miles per hour. So it's going to be a slow process. But St. Petersburg, you're done. Bradenton, you're done. Sarasota, you're done. Tampa, you're about done. You got a couple little showers left, so nothing significant. But my concern is this. This is how much rain came down. Look at that swath of 15 to 20 inches of rain from really Venice all the way up into parts of Polk County. A lot of people get up early and they go to work. I urge you, if you don't have to go out before the sun comes up, don't. Because there's going to be areas of Hardy County, Manatee County, Sarasota County that are flooded, and we don't know about it. And I don't want you to put yourself into a dangerous situation, so wait for the sun to come up.
Don't drive through it.
Absolutely don't drive through it.
And
you know
there was
that.
a flash flood warning for Polk County about an hour ago, no?
Yep, and that's going to continue all morning long because, and the secondary thing is this, all that water's got to drain into the rivers. And eventually the rivers are going to start to come up. So even though the flash flooding may stop when the rain moves out, the river flooding will continue possibly for days, or maybe even a week, depending on which river and how high it is and that kind of thing.
Well, what did we just say, the Peace River of 8 feet?
Yeah. Think about that. That's a big, all that water's got to go somewhere. And eventually it'll all drain out, but it's going to take time. So, we want to finish the forecast? Yeah, sorry. My voice is getting better, I promise you. I promise you.
Drops in my chest.
So wait, so let me throw it over to Tony. Tony's going to talk about where the storm's going to go. Okay. And let's have a forecast for the next 7 days.
Yeah, and the good thing, Dave, is that things are going to improve as you're talking about here going forward. But like you said, just can't stress that enough. I was out there near the Alafaya yesterday in Hillsborough County, and you could start to see that water start to rise. The Peace River in Polk County expected to perhaps reach those record levels. So something in those dangers we'll have to watch very closely. Here's the latest, though. Let's just kind of move this forecast a little forward now. Position, you could see it there as of 2 o'clock this morning. The winds are at 75 miles per hour. So it is still a hurricane. It's a Cat 1 hurricane, but it's still a hurricane as it's moving through Central Florida right now. Movement is northeast at 9, and I'll tell you that is the thing that really helped us out, is the fact that the storm has been moving. We know we're still going to see tremendous damage. Southwest Florida, we're still going to see a lot of flooding, but at least the storm is moving. Pressure now is at about 980 millibars. So let's show you the track here as we continue to go forward. The storm will continue to pull to the northeast. It'll find its way kind of in the just southeastern United States, just south of Georgia, and then perhaps get pulled into the Carolinas as a tropical storm, dumping a lot of rain. It's going to be a rainmaker as it eventually dissipates over the Carolinas into Virginia, West Virginia here going forward. So this is our Fox model, our exclusive Fox model that shows the rain kind of in motion here going forward. And you can see as we kind of put this into motion, this may be a little behind, but you get the idea. As the storm pulls away, it'll take all that heavy rain with it. We're already starting to see some improvements across much of our area. So there isn't a lot of rain left with this thing. We just have a couple more hours to go, especially in our counties I-4 North. And then we'll see this continue to get out of our hair. And we're dry here, as you can see the storm, and then kind of plaguing areas to the north here over the next couple of days and finally winding out by Sunday. So what does our forecast look for today? Much better. Temperature about 80 degrees. The rain early, we'll kind of see the rain diminish. The winds will gradually go along with it too. Those winds will still probably be in the 20-mile-per-hour range, gusts near 30, but eventually I'm thinking that we'll continue to bring those winds down. It's not going to be as bad. We'll be able to perhaps open the bridges and things like that. Emergency crews out there. Mostly cloudy skies, temperatures low 70s, breezy conditions into tonight. And then for tomorrow, forecast high of perhaps only 82 degrees. I think we start to bring the shower, the rain chances down. We'll bring the humidity down. It's going to start to feel more comfortable. 7-day forecast. Here you go. I mean, look at this weekend. It is absolutely going to be glorious, guys. Sun and clouds, feeling fairly comfortable, highs the mid-80s. No tropical issues to worry about, and it's going to give folks a chance to clean up. Walter, Jen?
All right, Tony, thank you. And speaking of all that wind, listen to this. Kayla McGraw sent us this video from Tampa. The city may have been spared from the worst of the storm, but still experienced hurricane-force winds yesterday. And because Hurricane Ian made landfall south of us, It caused the bay to get pushed out. Everyone was talking about this yesterday. Dozens of people along Bayshore watching the water recede. And I heard earlier this morning that it was 2 football fields. That's how much it receded.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. Some walked hundreds of feet out there, sometimes maybe as long as I said 2 football fields. The police ultimately stepped in. It's a safety issue, given the unpredictability of the wind and the water. You don't know when it's going to start coming back in. And all that wind and rain made a mess in certain areas of Hillsborough County, bringing down trees, leaving potentially dangerous debris on the roads. Fox 13 Haley Hines continues our coverage from Brandon.
Throughout Hillsborough County tonight, one of the most common things we saw were trees on the ground, big, heavy branches blocking the roads. We're here on Hughes Street, north of 60. You can see where this branch snapped from the tree about 15 or so feet high from those strong wind gusts we got throughout the night. And here's a look at Lithia Pinecrest Road from earlier tonight, south of Oak Lane Road. A large tree fell onto power lines, bringing them down to the road, blocking the northbound lane. Throughout Valrico, we saw a wall that was knocked over, more downed trees blocking roads, and even a heavy branch that dropped on top of a car. And take a look at this mess outside a home on Magnolia Drive in Thanota Sassa. The storm brought a tree onto a carport. The family was outside on the porch at the time, so they're fortunate nobody was hurt there, but they did lose 2 cars, 2 carports, a shed, and part of a workshop, and now left with thousands of dollars in damage.
Well, we've been sitting out on the porch in and out all day, and we hear crashing and banging with the trees around us, and head for the hills when we hear one really close. So we lost power probably half an hour, 45 minutes ago, and we just got the generator up, so hopefully we'll be okay through the night. No sleep.
And she likely won't be the only one dealing with a lack of sleep tonight. We came across some other minor wind damage around Hillsborough. At US 41 and Apollo Beach Boulevard, we spotted an awning on the ground with a bent gutter attached to it that appeared to be blown off a retail building. Not far from there, a bent, twisted railroad crossing gate. And once the sun comes up, we'll be able to get a full assessment of the damage throughout Hillsborough County and the Tampa Bay area. Then the cleanup can begin. And once it is safe to venture out and get behind the wheel, just be extra cautious, take your time, and keep your eyes open, because a lot of roads are going to look like this, whether it's a tree in the road, a branch, down power lines, or debris, and all of that still needs to be cleaned up. Reporting in Brandon, Haley Hines, Fox 13 News.
And an important reminder this morning, even if the weather doesn't seem too bad where you are, stay inside. Despite lower winds in some parts of the Bay Area, we're expecting lots of flooding due to heavy rain.
If there are flash flood warnings in your area, remember, it is never safe to walk or drive through flooded areas. We continue to coordinate with all of our electrical partners. As the governor's mentioned, there are over 30,000 linemen staged throughout the city, from north central Florida all the way down to Miami.
This right here, this is a perfect example why we all need to just stay indoors. Tampa Police Department posted a video on their Twitter page. Look at this. In Ybor City, a traffic light just came crashing down right in front of their cruiser. I say now is not the time to venture outside.
And right now, 15 Florida hospitals have evacuated and initiated what they call patient movement missions. Hospitals have protocols in place to handle emergencies like this one on 2 fronts. Not only are they preparing for patients who may be injured during the storm, but they also have to protect their actual facilities. And Tampa General, as you know, is located right on the water. Earlier this week, crews put up this aqua fence around the hospital campus, and it can hold back water that has a surge of up to 15 feet above sea level. TGH also has backup generators in case of power outages and an adequate water supply.
I saw that the other day. To me, that is fascinating.
I have not seen it yet, yeah. Ahead of the storm, Tampa General chose to cancel elective surgeries. That means there will be no elective surgeries for the next 2 days. Its visitor policy has also changed, and it's being assessed on a case-by-case basis. As for the TGH urgent care centers, they are all closed. Officials will assess their reopening plans today, but it is possible urgent care centers won't reopen until Friday.
Meanwhile, Baycare hospitals have closed all facilities to visitors. Obstetric, NICU, pediatric patients may only have 1 visitor throughout the storm. Morton Plan North Bay in Newport Richey and Bardmore's Emergency Department in Largo are both closed. And further south, the urgent care centers run by Sarasota Memorial Hospital have been closed since Tuesday. Entrances to the main hospital have also been secured, but the ER is still open. If you experience an emergency, the state is still urging everyone to call 911. Only if it's an emergency, but understand those emergency services may not be able to respond right away.
And last night, Governor DeSantis requested President Biden grant a major disaster declaration for all 67 counties in Florida and all types of assistance due to the ongoing devastating impact of Hurricane Ian.
As this storm passes your community, understand it's still a very hazardous situation. You're going to have down power lines. You're going to have a possibility of harm's way because of standing water, misuse of generators.
President Biden has been in contact with Governor DeSantis, as well as several mayors who are in the storm's path, offering up any help that they may need. The storm's impact is already spreading well beyond the coast. And another problem, usually at a time like this, the nation could tap into the strategic oil reserve, which is used during emergency times. Now, FEMA is keeping a close tab on things. We've got more video to show you, this time out of Fort Myers. This is the Mobile Outreach Center from the Lee County Sheriff's Office. Floating in the water. Do you see that?
What is that?
That's the Mobile Outreach Center from the Sheriff's Office in Lee County. The trailer swept off its foundation by storm surge. Thankfully, no one was hurt. But man, our hearts go out to Fort Myers this morning.
You know what? That'll show you the power of water.
Agreed. Yeah. Unreal. And unfortunately, we have the task of being on air when the sun comes up, and that's where we're really going to see just how bad it is. So
yeah, you'll probably see a whole different story when the water recedes, the sun comes up, and we see what kind of damage there is. Let me pass along these flash flood warnings to you guys. You guys can understand me, right? Even though I'm a little scratchy on the old voice. Okay, just making sure. The one I'm concerned about is eastern Polk County. So there's a flash flood warning out for eastern Polk County till 3:30, so another hour or so. And we've had 2 to 4 inches of rain in short order in eastern Polk County. So you're talking about places like Winter Haven and Haines City and Auburndale, Frostproof, Highland Park, Lake Wales Municipal Airport, and so on and so on. And a lot of people get up early, got to go to work and stuff like that. But if you can hold that off just until the sun comes up, it would be better. Because you're going to look, if you look at the radar, you're going to see a lot of areas inundated with water that aren't typically inundated with water. Let me show you what I'm talking about. The rainfall rates. Hold on, let me stop this for a second. If you look at some of these rainfall rates that have come down, I mean, it's coming down at like 2.5 inches an hour. An hour. Think about that. Imagine in an hour around the Kissimmee area, you're getting 2.5 inches of rain in just that 1 hour. It's blinding rain. It's impossible to even see, never mind to be able to see the hazards that may be in front of you. So to be honest with you, that's my main concern. It's the Polk County area, and we're dealing with some of that rain. But after it goes away in about 2, 3, 4 hours from now, then we're going to be fine. And then we're going to push everything out, and everything is going to slowly get better. So if you're taking, I-4 right through Polk County, the closer you get to Orlando, the heavier the rain there is going to be. The other problem that we had was we knew that just to the north of the center there would be an area of 15 to 20 inches of rain. Well, there it is. From Venice to eastern Sarasota County, southeastern Manatee County, most of Hardy County. There's got to be a lot of flooding in Hardy County right now. So you got to be careful this morning. 11 to 15 inches. And Polk County, some of that will get into that grayish color as well over the course of the next couple of hours as your rainfall totals continue. Wind gusts still tropical storm force, Brandon, Clearwater, St. Petersburg, Sarasota. So in about 4, 5, 6 hours, you're going to start to see those winds drop down. So other than some gusty winds, Jen and Walter, Tampa, St. Petersburg, Sarasota, it's about done. Just some gusty winds left, and then we can start the cleanup, okay?
Yeah, and I'm checking on the Skyway Bridge. FHP still reporting that it's shut down. it's probably a good thing to stay inside anyway and not be crossing that bridge. And one of the hardest hit spots in the immediate Bay Area, Sarasota County. Widespread power outages there, and the Emergency Operations Center is running at full capacity. Now, the good news is the worst appears to be over. So let's get back out to Fox 13's Matthew McClellan. He's live in Sarasota.
Matt, you were walking around that mobile home. It looked like a scene of a tornado. I mean, it looked bad.
Yeah, it really did, and everybody was sort of bracing for the possibility of really catastrophic flooding in and around Sarasota. Unfortunately, that's not what happened. There's not really any accumulation to speak of. There's some puddles, but that's about it water-wise. But wind is really what we're seeing causing the extent of the damage here. I'll just move and let Jason sort of lead the way. This is just, you know, and I want to emphasize this is not the worst of the damage in Sarasota. This is just the first of the damage that we are seeing as we venture out this morning to take a look at this. So what Jason is showing you is a carport, the roof of somebody's carport. I don't know where this came from. I've not been able to locate the source of this, but this metal roofing blown off of somebody's home, covering their car at some point. And if Jason just turns a little bit, this house, you see where the carport just peeled back like a piece of foil, folding onto itself, exposing this car, leaving the columns that once supported it just standing there. And then Jason's showing us inside. So you see where when the roof pulled back, you've got the insulation from the ceiling fixture, both sort of hanging there, exposed to the elements. I'm sure this house would have taken on quite a bit of water as well if this happened well before the rain really kicked in. So Jason's going to sort of walk us around. There's also a downed palm tree here blocking the way. Again, if you're just now joining us, this is a 55 and older mobile home community off of South Tampa Trail in Sarasota. We're sort of like halfway between Sarasota and Osprey. But this is really a lot of what we're seeing. And as we walk through, I'm going to take you on a short walk here because down at the end is really what I want to show you. As we walk through, you hear not only the rustling of these branches, but also you hear the clanging of loose metal. And that's really an indication of pretty much at every turn, somebody's got some damage, whether it's to their drains along the roof of their house. Look at this, Jason, to the right. No, you had it in the right there. Another one of these carports where it looks like it's just come apart in pieces here. We are seeing lights on. That's a good thing. Just in the last hour, we heard a loud boom right after the sky sort of lit up, and then that indicated to us that that's some kind of transformer activity, and then shortly after the street lights came on. So power is now restored here. We've seen no signs of people out and about, which is a good thing. It looks like most of these folks did evacuate. But as I continue to walk you on down, it's this house, this mobile home straight ahead. You see up on top of it, there's something there. That really flagged our attention. So we came down here a second ago just to see what that could possibly be. And I'm speculating here, but that this massive piece of metal back on the roof of this mobile home is the entire roof from another mobile home. So Jason's going to just kind of take us through here. I'm going to go behind him as he shows us this mess, this destruction here in Sarasota. So again, flooding did not happen here, and that is something we can all be thankful for, because as we've been talking a lot about overnight, the power of water, you know, well, you also have the power of wind. Not as deadly necessarily, but when you've got these pieces of debris whipping around, that can really cause a hazard to anybody who's not taken cover. So this is something I just wanted to show you, kind of flag you down about it. We're going to be moving through this area throughout the morning. And, you know, I'm trying to really show you some of the homes and businesses that have taken damage. Not just the downed limbs and branches. We'll, of course, show you that as well, especially if it's an obstruction to a roadway. But folks are really not advised yet to get back out, as we've been telling our viewers. Don't get back out yet. Don't get on the road. It's not yet safe. It is not the time yet to try to go back home and see what the damage is. We're trying to sort of do that for you and just give you an idea of what you might find out in Sarasota as the sun comes up in a few hours, really getting a first look here. So we're going to get back out on the road shortly and try to show you some more of Sarasota outside of the mobile home parks as well. Let you see what folks are waking up to in a few hours here.
You know, don't quote me on this, Matt, but we think We think Tyler said that the winds in that area were about 100 miles per hour, at least wind gusts. So it's no surprise.
And it was hard to sleep. I'm just coming on to my shift, Walter, and throughout the night, our power got knocked out. We were without power for about 9-10 hours, and all through that, it sounded a lot like this. We were up on the top floor actually, and so we could hear the squeaking and the creaking and the twisting of something on the roof. Obviously, everything stayed intact for us, very fortunately. But it's these folks in these communities that are going to be returning to maybe not life-altering, but some pretty significant damage to their homes.
And we can't stress again enough to not do it yet, that it's not safe. I know people are eager to go back to their neighborhoods and to see what their homes look like, but now is not the time.
Yeah. Matt McClellan line for us in the Sarasota area. We'll talk to you later on. Thank you. Be safe out there, guys. Right now, more than 1 million people are without power as Hurricane Ian makes its way across Florida. Right now, moving through the Polk County area, but utility crews plan to start making repairs bright and early. Fox 13's Charlie Belcher. Obviously, he has Charlie's World. But he is a rock star.
He can do it all.
He started reporting news, and he's going back to his roots, and we sometimes forget how fantastic you are at doing the news. Live from Tropicana Field in St. Pete, where Duke Energy is doing their staging area.
Yeah, crews have their hands full, Charlie.
We don't need a disclaimer. We can just get right to me.
No.
You need a disclaimer. Trust me, audience. You can believe him. Yeah. Sorry, folks, but here's Charlie. Trust me, he might know what he's talking about.
You do.
Well, listen, I always thought it was ridiculous, quite frankly, when local news would go on and on about power outages. Because I'm thinking, if you don't have power, you're not hearing that. And if you do have power, quite frankly, you don't care. But in this day and age, people hopefully have their phones charged and they're watching us on their phones, or they're watching us on their iPads or their tablets. And we are broadcasting, simulcasting through several radio stations. So hopefully if you have a battery radio, hopefully you can hear me, because let me tell you, there is nothing more frustrating. Well, there are scenes more frustrating. A tree through your house would be more frustrating. So don't let me get too hyperbolic here. But let me say that it is very frustrating to lose power, especially if you're somewhere where the storm didn't hit as badly as it hit somewhere else, and it's now getting hot in your house, and you're worried about the food in your refrigerator, and it's so irritating. And you're thinking, well, where are the crews? Why aren't my lights on yet? Well, you got to wait. You got to be a little patient. I am at Tropicana Field, and you can see this is Duke Energy I'm talking about here. We have several power companies in our viewing area as well. You got TECO, Florida Power and Light, Peace River, Duke Energy. So you have a lot of different agencies doing a lot of different things, but most of them are staging like this in different areas. Duke Energy has 3 different staging areas in 3 different counties around here, and I was looking at just some of the license plates, and they're from all over the place. They're just from all over. They came here, staged here, but they're not going to head out while it's like this, while it's dark outside, because you don't know where the down power lines or water of unknown depth. They're not going to put their crews in danger. So they are going to wait until the sun comes up, and then they are going to hit the streets hard, and they are going to get to you just as quickly as they can. So the numbers are frustrating. By my count, and according to Duke Energy, 441,000 people without power in the state of Florida. You start breaking it down, and 185,000 people in Pinellas County, a couple of thousand people up near Spring Hill and Pasco County, 21,000 up there. And I can tell you, like FPL, Florida Power and Light says in Manatee County, over 137,000 people without power. Sarasota, over 257,000 people without power. What TECO just says in Hillsborough, widespread. Polk, widespread. Pasco, widespread. Look, there's power out all over the place. It's frustrating, nothing more irritating. If you are a Duke Energy customer, they say visit duke-energy.com, Duke- minus sign, whatever you want to call it, duke-energy.com on a desktop computer or a mobile site. You can also grab a pen and paper, actually for the whole morning, because we're going to have so much information for you. But if you text OUT, O-U-T, text OUT to 57801. Text OUT to 57801. If you're a Duke Energy customer, and you can report your outage that way. Chances are they know it's everywhere. They know it's all over the place. If you go to Duke Energy's website, you can kind of monitor it. You can see the numbers yourself. And hopefully, as soon as the sun comes up, we see those numbers start to quickly go down. Now, I'm used to starting a shift a little later in the morning where I would think the sun's going to come up in about an hour. But by my watch, it's like 2:45. So we got a little while. So if the worst of the storm is past your area, you know what? Turn off the radio. Turn off your device. Get a little sleep. Get a little sleep. Don't watch the news all night long. Get some rest. Get some sleep. Hopefully you wake up in the morning and power is going to come on soon. But folks, you're going to have to be patient. It is going to take a while. Walter, Jen, I literally have nothing else to tell you. I'm in a dark parking lot with nobody to talk to. I got all the information I could from people who worked earlier in the night. I know Kelly Cowan and Liz Fry. They're good at faking it all morning long. I'm just going to tell you, I got nothing going on out here but wind and a bunch of trucks in a dark parking lot.
Yeah, we're looking forward to seeing
probably do this again about 6 times.
Start to move. Oh, look. The wind just blew up here.
I will say
it's a little windy. Yeah, it is a little windy.
It's probably going to ramp up. It's going to go from 0 to 100 in about 2 minutes. They're all going to show up, and then they're going to clear out and get to work. So, Charlie Belcher.
Well, but not till the sun comes up, Walter. Not till the sun. So let's not give false hope. Not until you see the sun up where you're going to see these trucks rolling, because it's just not safe. That's why it's not safe for anybody to be out there right now.
And I know 1 million is a lot, over 1 million, but the governor did say 40,000 workers getting ready to restore that power across the state. So it may take a little bit of time, but they'll get to you.
Yeah, 10,000, I think, just from Duke. They've already 10,000 workers. So,
wow.
Yeah. Help is on the way.
All right. Charlie, thank you.
See you soon.
Ever so honest, that Charlie Belcher. I got nothing else. All right, well, so as Dave mentioned, on a more serious note, the storm made landfall north of Fort Myers Beach, and most of that town is underwater. Most of the town is underwater this morning. Look at the video. Cars, homes submerged by the storm surge. Some homes are even floating away. And Elizabeth Fry is traveling down to Fort Myers to get a closer look at the aftermath.
Now, Liz, morning to you.